Once it sticks to itself, we're good. Grab a technical.
All right, Mike, we're good.
Yeah, he's at Northwest.
What do they call it?
What are they going to do? You're fine. Left. Oh, yeah. Hey.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so you got to.
Oh, you mean it just zips over the curve too far?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you got it.
No, so you just sit up and put it first.
We're live, Tim.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
That good.
All right, I know we're a little bit behind for technical difficulties, but we'll get rolling here. Appreciate everybody attending, everybody online. Thanks for bearing with us a little bit here until we got the feed up. My name is Mike Vassar. I'm the Executive Director of the Iron Dog. This is the Rookie Workshop for 2025. We thank our sponsor for this event, Woody's. Appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity for the gentlemen who are going to present to you today for their experiences over the years. I hope you find it very, very interesting for sure. It'll be Chris Oles, a 4-time champion, Tyler Eccleston, a 4-time champion, and then I just have Larry Levine who just came in. He'll put the reality to the whole thing for you from a different perspective. And then we're going to start off with about an hour of pro class questions. I guess we don't have a way for people to call in, do we? I just thought about that. I don't have my computer. If you're outside and have a question for pro class, please email it to me and we'll get it answered. But for the people in the room, Dave Bathke leads the tech team, and we have Stan Brown here, who's our head race marshal this year. We can answer any questions if you have questions about the rules. So I appreciate that. The agenda today will kind of go with, we'll answer some of these questions, we'll move along for pro class questions. If you have questions about the rules, then we will have Dave and his team talk about some of the tech issues or questions that they arise at. And then we'll roll into Chris, Tyler, and Larry talking about the items and requirements that are needed for you during the race. Feel free at any time. This is an open agenda. If you have a question, I would encourage you to ask it. There's no stupid questions. The only one we got right now is Mother Nature needs to turn it around quickly. One note for this is probably pro class racers more than anybody. Whiskey Bravo, which is the second checkpoint, is not open this year. There will be 6 55-gallon drums. I've got the new pump handle at my house that I got to finish putting together for them to take out this week. The drums will be right by the airstrip, by that building right next to the airstrip. There will be a sheet there, or if you'd rather, text or email when you go by there. If you use 27 gallons, whatever, 5 gallons, if you'd email the office or just put it on that sheet, I'll collect from you. It's $10 a gallon. I'll collect from you at the tech show. But there will be fuel at Whiskey Bravo. They got 2,200 gallons there right now. They're going out there in 3 and 4 day stints. So should the barrels start to get empty, or that's another thing. If you guys notice the barrels are getting empty, get somebody's information so when they go back out there, they can pump them back full. So we're on the honor system for that this year, but at least we got fuel out there for you guys to fuel that. It'll be right next to the airstrip. They are going to keep the airstrip plowed, so if you have airplane guys that want to land there while you're practicing, the airstrip should be plowed as well. The tech inspection this year will start at noon on the 12th at the Menard Center. You will move sleds in. It'll be similar to what we've done before. We'll put the sleds around the outside of the arena. Noon, we'll move in. Tech will start. Hopefully tech will get everything done by 4:35. I have all the confidence in the world that Dave and his team will shatter their record from last year. So that's great. And then it helps for you guys and gals have all been much more prepared at what's needed from a tech standpoint when you're there. So that helps a ton to be ready. We'll then leave there. Your sleds will stay there. The doors will open. It's going to be a dinner. A racer and his wife, or an entrant and his wife, or significant other, whichever, will be no charge. The rest of the table will be $25 a seat.
Clarification, can I please, was that noon at February 12th?
Noon, yep. Yep. We'll then start into the racer draw banquet, a very nice dinner. A Calcutta and the auction will all be in one night, so it won't be multiple nights this year. All be done then. If you want to, we only have the arena that night for security until 11, but the doors will be locked at 11. The sleds, or your sleds, are willing to stay there overnight if you want to. If not, then we'll have to make some arrangements to move out that night. We have until noon the next day to grab the sleds out of the arena. So that's up to you guys what you want to do there. Right now, tentatively, we've set a trail cleaning group up for the 9th, 10th, 11th? 9th, 10th, and 11th of January. We're trying to coordinate with Whiskey Bravo that they'll have some of the rooms open for us. So if you want to stay tuned, we'll keep you apprised of that trail clearing group up through there. But that's the tentative time to go start, or for us to go out and put a group and start cleaning the trail up there. We'd love to have some help. If you want to join, that'd be great. But we'll keep you apprised through MailChimp, things like we did for this. I don't know if everybody knows, we made some transitions in Iron Dog this year. Kelly has retired to join her husband, who retired a couple of years ago, which I think was well needed because John, I think, was getting frustrated. And Kelly and I always having to go to an Iron Dog event, so we hope that they're doing well, and I know she's been a great asset to us over the years. Our new logistics operations director manager now is Rachel Blackwood, who's here today. So if you haven't met Rachel, introduce yourself. She's your contact now in the office. Amy Custard is also in the office now. She's not here this weekend. She had a prior commitment. So reach out to them if you would. I don't see JP here, but I know this is a family. For the most part, Iron Dog is a family. I got a text this morning, I think at 4:22, from Kim Bergeron. Kim Bergeron's been a huge help to Iron Dog over the years. It sounds like his son had a traumatic fall from somewhere at college last night, and he survived the ambulance ride to the hospital, and he's in surgery. I don't know any details other than he said he caught a plane at 5 this morning. So our thoughts are with Kim. He's been a huge help to us, and he's always been there should we need something. So, bummer. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dave and team and Stan. If you have questions or you guys want to cover a few things, we do have some copies of the rules. If you want some copy of the rules right now to look through for questions, we can get you that. So, thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, and there's water, bananas, oranges, and apples in the room next door. And
Sure.
Lunch coming down here.
Good morning, guys. Guys and gals. My name's Stan Brown. I'll be your race marshal this year. I've been around a couple years here as far as doing the race marshal stuff. Dave's with Tech. He does a great job over there. I don't really get involved with too much of that stuff. So if you guys got questions on what you need, what you have to have, past Tech and all that, get with Dave or email the office. We'll point you in the right direction. Rookies, make sure you're on top of that stuff, because you don't want to go to Tech and not have well, he'll get into more of that. But as far as rules go, guys, I believe Iron Dog, we're just trying to get more involvement with the rules and less communicating. There'll be a team of 3 marshals. Myself, Savannah House is going to be a marshal, and then we're still looking for a 3rd marshal, but that's in the works. If you haven't read the rules, especially rookies, you guys get on the rules. It's very important. You guys will be in your garages probably every night here coming up, and you'll have questions to yourself, so you guys want to ask or ask Iron Dog, but you'll be thinking about the stuff throughout the night. So read through them. They're online. If you don't know where to find them, you get your racer packet. It'll have our numbers in there. If you need to reach out, you can call and ask. I kind of just went through them a little bit and highlighted some stuff, because everywhere there's kind of a gray area, or there might be a rule that you see it one way and we see it differently. So if you feel like you come across something like that, ask, and we'll try to go over those throughout the year. We'll be at Tech Check. We'll have a meeting there to go over a little bit more than obviously before race day or at race day. I just went through and highlighted a few. I'm not going to go over all the rules, but you guys make sure you read through them. Registration part, and on page 3 here, something you'll get passes for the known garage. You get 2 extra passes for up there. Make sure you guys either get those with whoever you're flying up with, if someone's going to be there, carry them on yourselves or whatever. You got buddies up there that are going to help. They're going to need that pass to get in there to help you guys do your work if that's what you're going to do. Known garage impound will be off limits to everyone, including racers, unless a team is completing their 15-minute inspection. So I highlighted this one, guys, because last year everything's online. We do want you guys to know that there's cameras everywhere, there's video everywhere, so, you know, watch what you're doing out there. So, in the gnome garage, there's a lot of video where, you know, you might go and, man, I need to go check out my sled again, and you're down there looking at it and doing stuff where it becomes a gray area, like, are you, you know, are you having an advantage over somebody else? So, I think this year it's going to be more like the snow machines are off limits, except for your 15-minute inspection. I know it's kind of like the only place to hang out with Gnome, kind of. So maybe we'll set up a little bit of area off to the side or something, but it won't, not everybody sitting on each other's sleds and all that's going to be probably cut off. Just to make it a little bit more fair out there. Kotzebue, when we go up to Kotzebue, you guys, we're not sure we're going to have the garage this year or not.
We won't.
Sounds like we won't. So we'll be back to like the first year we were in Kotzebue, we'll be outside the hotel. And any of these hold locations where there's holds, your time will start, you have to get to where your time starts before you can do any work. We're not going to allow you to keep it in the garage per se like last year and do your work and then go on the clock. Go on the clock, tow back to the garage, and then proceed.
Fuel in the morning.
Fuel and Kotzebue will be on the clock. Tech will give you numbers on your rails in certain spots of the snow machine. Make sure those are not covered up. Throughout the race, someone may be checking those numbers, make sure they're still the same ones that you started the race with. If you do have to replace something that involves those numbers, make sure those are turned in to the checkpoint, or call them down, or let Iron Dog know that you've replaced the rail that had that sticker. And Gnome will give you a new sticker, but make sure those stickers are not missing when you get to the finish line. Another thing, our parts cannot be removed from a team machine while the machine is in the impound location. So at checkpoints, guys, you can't take your hood off, go off the clock, and then go do a bunch of maintenance on your hood. You got to. This is a new rule, I believe, from last year. So if a part has been removed prior to going on layover, you must have a submitted replacement part installed before going off the clock on layover. So hood, shocks, clutches, etc. If you're going to pull a shock off or a hood off, the sled you have to put like a different hood or a shock back on, to where when you go back on the clock, that machine's ready to roll. That is new from last year.
A working hood, right?
Yeah, working.
Not just a-
Well,
they're on.
working parts, but you know, it's been, you know, the last couple of years we're seeing lots of people pulling stuff off. You know, I mean, I think someone pulled a skate out one time. It's like, no, this is not, it's not allowed. So it's just
Explain the intent to that, maybe. Explain the intent, what's happening if people were pulling a shock off and saying it's off the sled and they went and rebuilt the shock. That's not all right. You can't do that. You can't pull your skid out and say, I'm gonna replace a rail off the clock, it's no longer on a snowmobile. You got a wiped out hood and you needed a auxiliary light fix. You can't pull your hood off, take it away from the snowmobile and then fix that off the clock. That's the intent, and that's what was happening. And that's what they don't want to happen.
Yeah, the intent is you guys, any maintenance or any work needs to be on the clock. It goes towards your clock time, to your race time, and throughout the last couple of years, people have been working around that. So now that's written into the rules. You know, if you get a penalty out there, read through the rules, you can appeal these penalties to a certain circumstance. Protests are one thing. We'll get, participants must file a protest during their next layover. So if you felt like something happened or you got penalized or you're protesting another team, it needs to be at your next layover. We're not waiting, you're not gonna be able to wait till 3 days later and be like, you know what, shoot, they were doing something back there, let's call them out on it. No, it needs to be at the next layover.
So Stan, for clarification, so like you take the hood off and you put another one on, and then I take that hood and I put an auxiliary light on it, and I go back and put that on. So is that legal?
That would be legal.
Okay.
And you had a hood to put on.
So you can still do a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the way it's written is that would be legal.
You just can't have a sled sitting in impound with no hood on it.
Unless you really don't have a hood.
Unless you don't have a hood, right?
Yeah, unless you want it up, got towed in, and it looks that way, I mean, that's fine, but.
I mean, the intent still is like with the skid, let's just say that incident with the shocks happens. At minimum, you have to put another skid in there now that's usable before you even were to do something.
Well, you couldn't do that because of the rails, right? You could put a different shock.
You're allowed, and you can, as long as you tell the marshals or the officials that you're changing it out, because sometimes a rail that's got the sticker on it could be broken and you do need to change it.
You can't change the skin.
You couldn't change the whole skid.
You have to
so-
change it part by
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
not, you can't just throw a whole new skid in there,
Yeah.
put together.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was going, it still keeps people from doing that, pulling the skid out and just leaving it there. The sled with no skid.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, this is, like I said, not, all these checkpoints pretty much have, especially where you're laying over, there's gonna be cameras out there, there's people live feeding it, it pops up, and it just looks, it arises the questions of, what the hell is going on here? You got a sled that is taken apart, it looks like. And so, that's when we get blown up like, there's gotta be cheating going on, or whatever, and we don't wanna go down that road. The last thing the marshal team wants to do is penalize you guys. So we want everybody to get through that race and get to the finish line without having any issues that come from us. I think it's a lot of work you guys put into this. It's a lot of time, and we want you to finish. We don't need you guys trying to sneak by or try to do something that might get you penalized. So another thing, alleged violations will be reviewed by the race marshal team at Nome for all northbound protests. Last year, if it comes to timing, Tim's actually here, if it comes to timing and you feel like there's a timing issue, if you guys are going to, everything northbound needs to be handled at Nome. We don't need to be handling this stuff come finish line. There's a lot. Iron Dog, we're very busy throughout that whole week, and then especially come towards finish line time. And trying to make sure the things that if we do have to penalize or anything, that we're taking care of that southbound and northbound. So, timing though, I will give you guys a little bit of leeway on that, because I do feel like timing is a big thing. So if you feel like there's something wrong with timing, don't hesitate to ask, but make sure we're doing it in a timely manner. Northbound stuff needs to be taken care of and known. If you guys are appealing, whatever, or you're protesting another team, whatever, and then it goes over, cash your check to do some of these protests. So just make sure you guys read through that. Required protective equipment, Dave will cover some more of that. Code of conduct, guys, I highlighted that. Make sure code of conduct is followed out there. There's nothing worse, especially with the media and everything we're doing nowadays, and the cameras and everybody having internet. Don't be punching each other, Chris.
Wouldn't be me.
Don't be cussing. Try not to cuss out there. I know you guys, you'll come into checkpoints and you might be hot over something, especially you rookies. And it might not be with another team, but it's probably going to be your partner. So just just remember that everybody's watching out there. Code of conduct is important. No drinking, no smoking, none of that stuff while you're out there that week. I don't think there's ever been really an issue with that, but let's not make it.
Keep it that way.
Yeah, let's keep it that way.
Hey Stan, are in-reaches required each racer? Is that a change?
In reach, that is a change, I believe.
So now each racer has to have an in-reach?
I don't know if it's each. What page are you on there?
You skipped over it. It's page 16. in the required equipment? Satellite communication device, inReach, Spot, cell phone.
I don't believe that's each person, no.
It's listed on the rate person.
I think that was a change, Sam, that we made last year, because of each person.
Well, it's, yeah, all participants must carry on the person or their snowmobile.
Some of the new cell phones work with sat phones too. Yeah, just after that newest iOS update, almost all the iPhones now work with
Yeah,
sat phones.
I've heard that, yeah. That'll be something, that's a good question, guys.
I wouldn't count on that.
Yeah.
I know that thing is like, you know, it's gonna sit there for a minute, find the satellite, so if you're in the tree somewhere, it's probably not gonna work. So we probably will not allow that, I doubt. You can ask the question though. And then the inReach. I know that,
I can tell you from a stance, somebody that's ran it now a lot, Nick and I both carry them, and I would not have them. It's kind of stupid not. $300 and their service, it's a safety thing. You guys get split up, if there's something happens, it's pretty simple, they're light, and it gets you out of the pinch. Like in a bad scenario, it's a simple thing to have, and at the cost of all this, I would highly suggest this happen.
it is in there for each, so you gotta have it. But to go on with that, the story of my rookie year actually, we had issues and I was getting towed. It looked probably too fast. Anyway, I couldn't hang on. I fell off the snow machine and he was gone. It was the middle of the night and all I could see him was towing the snow machine down the fucking trail. And I was sitting there on the trail. It was probably 3 in the morning.
That's from last year.
It's harder to hold on getting towed than you would think. So, yeah, I didn't have nothing. I was looking for my lighter to at least maybe try to build a fire if I could, until he finally came back, and that was, I don't know, it felt like hours. So anyway, you gotta have that stuff. I also highlighted the GPSs that we give you guys need to be returned within 30 days. I don't know if that's new or not, but it was new to me when I saw it. Make sure you guys get that stuff turned back in 30 days. And make sure, you know, they'll go over that, where they're gonna mount them and all that stuff. Between Squitna, you guys going on to the race course here, page 23. The Squitna River is off limits. Up to the Happy there, the mouth of the Happy. Rainy Pass is off limits. You must travel through Ptarmigan Pass. Going down to Hell's Gate there. The dump road going into McGrath, that was put in last year. Just a reminder that that road is off limits going into McGrath. Stay off that road. Again, rookies, I'm sure you guys are you'll follow these pretty good, but those GPS trackers, guys, they're very good. We know exactly where you're at, so don't think, oh, the road's right over here off the river, I can get on it. It's not. They're very accurate, so don't assume that we don't know where you're at, because we do. Or somebody's going to tell on you anyway. Fueling procedures. This is a new one, kind of. There's 30, you guys can't really do anything when you're fueling 30 feet away. Either side will be where you get oil. Make sure when you guys are fueling, you're only fueling. No work or adjustment of any kind take place in this area. This is more of a huge safety thing and also with ISR and our insurance. It's not very good when someone's fueling their auxiliary tank and there's another guy laying down there adjusting the shock. That was something we saw last year. And the fuel nozzle is literally right above his head. You know, if fuel spills, that's not going to be good for you, and it's definitely not good for us and our insurance. So don't be doing anything there. Just get your fuel and move forward. Adjust your shocks. Do whatever you need to do. But just because you filled up first and now you want to go help your partner or dial something on his, don't be doing it. That's a new one. Just take care of your own business. Take care of your own sled, and then work on the next one when they're done fueling. Because not every checkpoint is going to have 2 pumps.
So you have in there that teams higher on the leaderboard should get priority at fuel pumps this year?
Yeah, they did.
How does that look?
That's more trail classes going in front of us. or they're behind us, but they might pass us as we go to Kotzebue or something, but I've told those guys to make sure, let Pro, if you're, for whatever reason, let Pro get in there if you are ahead of them somehow. But that one is new for us. That's not gonna be that'll be looked at more like there's a team that's way behind, like, they had problems, or I didn't really like this when I read it as well, because if it's the top 3 or whatever, and someone did an hour extra layover and then they catch back up, is the second place team supposed to let first place team go ahead of them? That's probably not gonna be the case. It's gonna be more or less you guys that are down on the list.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think the intent would be that, if you're, because I've been in this position where we had an issue leaving Nome, and we were running in, 3rd, 4th place, and they let everybody out in really quick increments, and literally all the way up to 15th place got in front of us, and we're competing for a podium position, and now we're at the pump for 45 minutes waiting for all these teams to go. I think that's kind of the intent. Like when you're in the top 5, 10, and you guys are battling, I don't think that's the intent to let. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. And the holds, Kotzebue, Dome, and leaving Whiskey Bravo. So your next checkpoint is where your White Mountain leaving Nome gets packed up. So what Chris is saying is probably more the intent as far as, exactly. If second place goes on the clock and they pull a skid out and do stuff, and then all of a sudden 5, 6 teams, 10 teams go out in front of them because we're releasing them within 5 minutes. And you guys will know, especially rookies, you guys will know, you know who all these racers are. You'll see them, if they come up and they cut you off at the pump, know where you're at the race, and those guys getting fuel for 2 or 3 minutes ahead of you is not gonna do much difference for you. But it's a big thing for these podium finishers or money finishers, however you want to state it. But good question, Tim, because I thought that was probably needed a little bit more wordage to
Okay,
it.
Stan, on page 20 under skis and runners, there's kind of a, you might clarify this. Number 2.
Okay.
It says skis may not be interchanged between brands, but then right after that it says any ski can be used from any brand.
It can be.
Yeah, but the first sentence says may not be interchanged.
That's an ISR.
It's in the, so which,
It can be changed.
okay, it kind of says both in that.
Yeah. I had to argue with Todd over that. And then I kind of got a question since we're on that, talking about the ISR. I was kind of going through, looking through that ISR website and the rules specifically to Iron Dog. Some of the rules,
updated them yet?
I don't know if they updated them. I was gonna say some of the rules don't necessarily mesh with part of the rule book, Iron Dog rule book.
No, so what happens there is when I sent him our rules 7 weeks ago. Whatever our rules are is what they post.
Okay.
They don't have their own set of rules.
Okay, so that'll change. Then.
Yeah, we won't be looking back at anything besides what
Okay.
Iron Dog
So
has.
you guys, as far as you guys are concerned, this trumps anything.
This trumps
Yes.
everything.
Okay.
They're super slow about updating.
Okay.
You guys, to clarify, holdovers and layovers, 6.2, all team participants must declare their layover intentions upon arrival within 20 minutes. So, rookies, you guys get there, if you're gonna do a layover, let the checkers know. The sooner we know, the sooner we can post it to the website, to where your family knows, everybody else knows what the hell's going on.
We're just gonna have
I know that's kind of been a gray area the last couple of years, but 20 minutes. And then going northbound, you can change your layover once. So if you declared a 10 and you want to take a 12, you just need to let the checker know an hour before you're supposed to go on the clock that you're changing it. And you can do that once going north and once going south. But that doesn't mean you get an hour to let them know every layover. Whenever you're doing a layover, you need to let them know within 20 minutes. But you can change one time going north if you wanted to 10 or 12 hour layover to something different. Or if it's gonna be shorter, say you took 12 or 15, whatever, and you wanna bring it down, you need to let them know an hour before you're gonna go on the clock. So that way they can relay to headquarters and headquarters can put it out there.
Dan, I got a question on that. Is there gonna be somebody that we can talk to about where layovers and stuff are? I mean, when you're racing, if somebody else is layover someplace else, it's good. We'd like to get to know where everybody else is at before we declare our layover, so is there gonna be a person we can talk to?
Well, you got 20 minutes, I mean,
That's what I'm saying. There's only 20 minutes, so now we'd like to know that information. I think most racers would like to know that information.
well, checkers aren't gonna know about a different checkpoint.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We'd like to- Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you were at a different checkpoint, they should have theirs declared.
Yeah, they're in front of you, correct.
Is there a scenario you can think of?
Yeah, just like, if you're competing, if you're first and second place is competing, it's very critical on who's potentially breaking the trail.
Right.
And if they go, say, beyond you, or say they're behind you or whatever, and they lay over, when you get to your checkpoint, you have 20 minutes, and sometimes it's tough with, no phone, or you don't have access to figure out when they laid over, or where they're at. So it's good to know where they're at, so that you can say, okay, they're gonna take.
But this
6
scenario, put it into play, go Galena to Ruby, you're 10 minutes apart. One
Yeah.
team goes to Ruby, one stays in Galena, second place stops in Galena. You're gonna have to declare, and the first place team can do whatever they want then. That's just part of the strategy then, at this
What
point, is you can't wait for them because they're in first and they went through.
Yeah, but I'm saying, if they're behind you or whatever, and they declare layover, you would like to know where they're at.
I think you just have to get that information.
I think that's
It's not
kind of-
really easy to get that.
That's kind of on you, I would think, as a rate part of it.
I don't see how
Yeah,
Ironbark's gonna.
I get that, except for the fact that, like, I can't go to the website and it's necessarily updated.
Well, that's what we're trying to do with this 20 minutes. Last year, everybody was never declaring.
Yeah.
So nobody knew nothing.
I guess that's where I'm going with this, is that, if it's not updated anywhere, how, as a racer, how are we to know? I mean, obviously, if we go into the same checkpoint, it's a lot easier.
I think our intention is if you don't declare in 20 minutes, then you're back on the clock.
Okay. So
Yeah,
that's the,
20 minutes,
That's the urgency to get your
it
declaration.
says 20
done.
minutes. Well, we've been doing it forever. Like back in the day, you just declared when you got there. And then it was relayed in and everybody knew. We're not trying to take strategy away from anybody, but it's a big burden on Iron Dog when everybody's laying over and nobody has a clue when anybody's going back on the clock.
yep.
And we need to know that.
Understand that.
I mean, we
A
can't.
lot of guys would just wait as long as they could or whatever.
Yeah, everybody did last year, it seemed like. So,
We have talked about, I don't know if these work or not, but we're testing them. I bought some. We have bought rapid radios that work off satellite. So I just got the set to test in remote locations, but the idea I think what we can do is if it does work like they're supposed to work, hopefully the checkers in remote locations, as you come in, can have the time right on the radio when you, for example, I don't know, you're coming into McGrath, it's team 10 and it's whatever, 20, 22, 41, and headquarters knows right away. We're testing, we're gonna test the rapid radios to see if they really do work in remote, which will help that time.
Yeah, I guess that's my only point, is that, it'd be nice to have that information instead of figuring it out an hour later after we've already.
no, I mean, and that's your guys' strategy. I don't see, we're not gonna try, Iron Dog's not gonna try and make sure you guys are all well informed of what other teams are doing. But,
But if we stick to the 20-minute rule, it should be pretty clear.
Yeah.
yeah, and trust me, if you guys didn't see stuff online, it wasn't because we weren't trying to get it on there. Jake, I'm talking with him constantly, and it's just we're not getting the information. So, if you guys don't know, we don't know. This year, guys, emergency checkpoint, page 24 as well. Montilla, Rainy Pass Lodge will be the only checkpoint as a this designated checker on-site will sorry, let me take this back. That's the only emergency checkpoint throughout the race. The designated checker on-site will relay all info regarding the team's arrival immediately to Iron Dog Marshall. These two individuals will determine if the arrival of the team or teams was deemed emergency. The decision will be made in a timely manner, no longer than 45 minutes.
And at this point, the declaration person there is Steve Burns Jr.
Steve Ferens Jr., he runs the lodge, guys, if you don't know him. Should the arrival of the teams be determined emergency, they will be allowed to request a layover based on layover rules.
Can I ask a question from a racer standpoint? And that, like,
I'm not
you've
sure.
now
I'll be able to
opened,
answer.
what's that?
I'm not sure I'll be able to answer.
No, I know that you guys should just consider this. You opened up, this opens up a can of worms of intent, people working around and circumventing the rules. Anything could be an emergency. I rolled my ankle. Like, I took out an A-arm, but when I took out my arm, I wrecked and my wrist hurts and I can't ride. How do you deem what is an emergency, what's not an emergency? I need a layover and I happen to get some parts there because it is a checkpoint. You guys, why not just call it a no fuel checkpoint and make it a checkpoint? No fuel there, not gonna have fuel there. You get rid of it and make it a standard checkpoint at Puntilla with no fuel. You get rid of people are going to try and just like the hood and all this other stuff, if somebody needs to, they're gonna find a way to make it an emergency.
Yeah, I think the intent of this, you guys, is day one, especially you rookies, you're gonna have a lot of nerves going on, a lot of adrenaline. Stuff can happen. With Whiskey Bravo being that new checkpoint, I mean, the Iron Dog wants to try to get as many people that signed up and started at the starting line to try to get to the finish line.
But, so here's the issue is, and this is talking to rookies. Logistically speaking, once you leave Whiskey Bravo and you get to Puntilla, and Puntilla is a high likelihood of somewhere to screw up. Going through that pass is somewhere a lot of people hit things. Once you're in that pass, you're not towing to Rome. You're not towing back to Whiskey Bravo. You're kind of in no man's land. If it's bad enough, your race could be over. So that's where Puntilla is strategically, if you can get there, you can get parts. People are going to turn it into, in that scenario, they're going to say it's an emergency. So why not just cut it off and call it, I mean, I know you guys can't answer this now, but I think it's something that should be discussed. It's not. It's not.
I mean, that's something that we'll bring up to Iron Dog to discuss. But like Tyler's saying, you know, it's for an emergency, you guys, and
Sorry, I don't mean to interject too much, but what if, I mean, obviously the intent is, we're not planning on staying there, don't do that, but the intent is a checkpoint if you guys need to use it, right? I mean, that's.
And then what's an emergency? Because an emergency, if I can't tow back and my race is over, that's an emergency.
It is, for sure.
So what do you deem that as?
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm just,
I mean,
I get the.
you know, I think it came about last year, Team 5, what if they wadded up outside or crashed outside and got hurt and had to scratch. You know, when I was looking at this and talking about it, I believe with, you know, if planes are going to be out there, I believe Iron Dog and the race marshals, we would probably be able to tell with information that we can gather if it was an emergency or not. Don't get me wrong, you're going to say you rolled your ankle, whatever, or you broke your wrist, you know, those things might come around, things might come up, but there's going to be an investigation into it and dealing with the lodge and whoever else that we know that are up there, we'll be able to get some information. I agree though, we'll bring it up to talk about to Iron Dog, because it is kind of, it's new, so with something new, it brings questions, so we'll look into that. Holdovers and layovers, rookies, make sure you guys definitely reading these roles and layovers, and you know, a little advice for, you might have the top 5 teams, these guys they're going to be doing some long stretches. You guys got 40 hours going north, and you got 40 hours going south. For the record, the top teams, they don't use all those 40 usually. So don't think you got to maintain within them or be at the same checkpoints as them. Run your own race and understand that it's a clock. You're not racing against who's in front of you. You're racing with a clock, and don't worry about trying to push yourself too far. You got 40 hours going north and 40 hours going south. The bottom here, 6.4, a team can leave a checkpoint and return to declare a layover. So this is something that was new last year, it's been 2 years. You can declare a layover at the same spot twice. Actually up to 3 times. So last year became a question, if you guys don't recall, out of Ruby, everybody was trying to do some sort of layover truck to try to get the first place team up in the front breaking trail. So the only place in the rules that talks about leaving a checkpoint is 100, you know, under towing, it says you gotta at least be able to drive your sled 100 feet, and then you can start re-towing or do whatever. But you have to be able to drive both snow machines out of the checkpoint. So, and it goes up to 100 feet. So last year we told them they needed to go 100 feet and then they can come back and declare a layover. So between if you go there, you do layover, say you leave, you come back, you go back on layover for your second time, that's just whenever you came back and declare your layover. So it might be 30 seconds, it might be a minute, how long it took you to go 100 feet back. You can do that. If you do it again between your second and third, it's a minimum of 15 minutes will be added to your clock. It doesn't say minimum on there, but that's the way I'm looking at it. So if you leave, if you read this, you might say, oh shoot, you go actually out there and you have an issue, so your clutch falls apart or whatever, you've been out there for 20 minutes and you come back for your third layover at the same spot. It's not going to be 15 minutes. You know, whatever is greater, 15 minutes, or if you're gone for 25 and came back, it'll be 25. But if you read this, it makes it sound like if you came back for your third one, you would only get a 15-minute time.
You can do your second layover without leaving.
You got to leave 100 feet. You can't show up in street clothes, and you got to go on the clock. You got to leave, and you got to come back. And I don't know who all did it last year, but there was plenty of you guys that probably did it. But last year with Tyson and I, we told them the only thing you can find in the rules as far as what's a checkpoint is 100 foot. So, you guys got any questions on that? Because that was a big issue last year. Again, towing's on the next page. You can tow through Ophir and Poorman going north. You can tow through all express checkpoints. And then if we hold the Whiskey Bravo for the finish, you can tow through Squitna on finish day or on final day. But other than that, you can't tow. You can't just tow through all the checkpoints. You gotta fix the sled or get it to a point where you can run it at least 100 feet out and go from there. And rookies, I don't suggest you try to tow through the race. Okay, get your stuff fixed. You're gonna get cold, especially if the snow machine doesn't run. It does not take long, and you'll be cold on that sled for sure.
Do you want to go for express and shack?
Yeah, express checkpoints, guys.
Like Shack Tulik, you don't have to go into town, just if you're out on the ice. I mean, they can see you. You don't have to go into town.
Yeah, so express checkpoints, rookies, we just need to be able, the checker there just needs to be able to see you go by, you know, slow down, wave to them, whatever. Shell Lake is the first express checkpoint. I don't see any way you're getting around that.
It's on the checkpoint anymore, is it?
Well, it's on the table, yeah.
It should be because it can't get other way. Right.
Yeah, Shell Lake you gotta go through. Shack Tulik, which is out on the coast after you leave Unifleet. Like Johnny's saying, that one you can be, you know, depending on where the trail is or whatever, it might be out on the ice, it might be up on land. But just make sure you swing over there, let them know. They're usually pretty good, they're sitting out there on the bank.
Yeah, I was gonna say historically, they're right as you're coming into town, but they're kind of on the bank, watching, waiting for if someone's gonna come into town or leave. It's pretty standard.
And I'll clarify, because this mileage table here, it doesn't say you get fuel at Shack Tulik, but we things have before. So I'll clarify on that.
Good, that was my question. Last year, we had that issue that we didn't know we could get fuel there. And lady just flagged us and told us, I keep going, so we just kept going.
They usually aren't ready for you.
Yeah, 90% of the time, not all teams get fuel there. So if you do get fuel there, they're caught off guard, might take them a minute to get over there. And this goes for any checkpoint, really. If you guys are at a point in your race where something happened and you're traveling out there alone in the middle of the night or something, be prepared when you show up at these checkpoints that you might be knocking on the door or whatever, and it might take a minute or two to get the guy up or whatever to get you fuel. I mean, don't get me wrong, these guys do a wonderful job out there, and they do keep track of you guys, but there is times where you might run into an issue where, and the Shaktoolik being the express, if you fill up your tanks, guys, you'll make it, but if you're nervous and you don't want to run out of fuel out there, it's been available in the past, so I'll double check on that.
If we do have to go overland for some reason, that's when people might be more concerned with this substantially longer go around.
So those are, and then Elam's an express checkpoint as well, which is also out on the coast. Again, that's one where there's an overland road that you either come in on, or you're out there on the coast or out there on the ice. If you're out there on the ice, you do need to swing in, and Elam's a little bit different. You got to go you got to get in there where they can see you. They're kind of stationed.
Did they not put some laugh up last year to come into through?
You actually did have some laugh. It kind of took you towards if you were out there was actually I don't really think there was laugh, but they did kind of have a trail, and they were actually out there on the ice, not far from town.
I think they set up 2 spots.
They probably did.
The intersection on the road is, and then there's an overland trail from there, but I think they set up in town and by the ice, so.
It was well marked on the ice.
Right. Some, whoever's out there pre-racing or, out there practicing, and the ice is good, half a mile offshore, you gotta come in and let them know.
Unless they're out on the ice.
Yeah, wherever you see them. Kotzebue, so talking to you rookies, about 40 hours north, 40 hours south. There is still, read through these rules, there's times when you need to either be at a checkpoint or be out of a checkpoint. So just because you think you fell behind, whatever's happening, and you're going to do 40 hours in one spot, it might be past the time that you need to be out of that checkpoint. So pay attention to that. McGrath, teams must leave McGrath by midnight on Sunday, February 16th. There's just different times. Kotzebue is a hold. We hold you guys in Kotzebue. In any of these holds, you can declare a layover afterwards. So if you came in at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and we got you on the clock, or we got you scheduled to leave at 10 a.m. the next morning, and you think you need a longer break, you can do a layover after this hold.
Do you have to leave the 100 feet to do that later?
No, on a hold.
Is there a time limit to declare it when you at 10 o'clock, and you get 20 minutes to declare after?
An hour before you're supposed to go on the clock.
Okay, hour before.
Yeah, you're not going. We're going to assume you're on the clock, and that's what we've been told.
Okay.
No, same thing. Kotzebue, no, and then Whiskey Bravo are the 3 holds. That's all I had highlighted, guys. If you got any more questions, but make sure you rookies read through it. I know you guys are gonna have a lot of questions with your teammate when you guys are wrenching, doing work. You're gonna start brainstorming. Just make sure you're reading through them and read them multiple times. Any questions? We'll go over the day here.
All right, good job, Stan. I'd like to preface one thing, I know it doesn't come up a lot, but if you're going to protest something, and don't have the money, when you talk about the protest or have it written down, there ain't no protest. Period. You need to come with money and it handwritten. Otherwise, in my mind, or these guys' mind, it isn't a protest. It's just complaining. We wasted a lot of time on some issues last year that really didn't have those two things attached to it, so. Yeah, sure.
5-minute break and we'll start up.
I have raffle tickets. But whatever I said,
That could be I think that could be a real emergency.
Closer to like 42. That's right. That shows up. You look at
Sorry, you had to go Mr. Box.
Same thing.
I just got a.
Oh, no, I brought. I like it.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and then, so you ask.
I was almost thinking about
Yeah, right. That just goes to your.
Even myself, I'm like.
It's not really
Well, we had, we ended up have kind of a syllabus.
I got excited. You found something that's
You're racing.
Oh, sure, thanks.
Mike, we are. You're live.
What's up, Bear? All right, let's get back with Dave Matheny, who heads up the tech team. Again, I want to thank Woody's for sponsoring this and also MTA for the use of this great facility for us to use. One question that probably pops up is LifeMed has always offered us a membership for their services during the week of the race. I will publish that out. They've had some personnel turnover, so the gentleman who's now at LifeMed was looking into it, but he didn't have any idea that we had that opportunity during the race. So typically in the past, you've been able to sign up for LifeMed's helicopter service during the race. I think it was 45 or 50 bucks. And so I'll make sure I get that done again so that you have the opportunity to sign up for their services for the week and a half of the race. So they've got quite a few new personnel, so just wanted to get that up there. But again, thank MTA for this great facility. And go ahead, Dave.
My name's Dave. My good friends, Brad and Brian over here. We were Team 50 a few years back. Trail class, had a grand adventure. All three of us can close our eyes and remember every single day of that adventure. And I wish that for all of you guys in a good way. Okay? And we also at that time saw the silent army of volunteers that helped Iron Dog happen. And that's why we're here now, to make that go. This is a phenomenal thing, and you guys are going to enjoy it. Some may be painful, some not. Things to be prepared. I kind of took over tech a while back. What I was trying to bring to Iron Dog is I've done some grassroots racing in the States, road course type stuff, SCCA, and I wanted to bring that level of tech to Iron Dog where it's consistent and everybody understands the rules, and that we have a team of inspectors that are all trained and teching to the same level. And I think we're there. And one of the key things is educating all of you guys to be prepared for tech inspection. So it's profoundly important to go through the rule book, you go through the tech checklist, and before tech inspection day, you're comfortable with every single item on that tech checklist. Okay? Mike mentioned earlier there's no such thing as stupid questions. I'm a firm believer in that. Send me questions, send headquarters questions, they'll send them to me. We'll get you back an answer. So we're going to try to do little updates here as we get closer about specific tech topics, and we'll use the MailChimp program to send things out. And if you want to trigger a topic, then send something to me and say, hey, there's a clarification on this. But healthy banter before tech day is key to success for everybody. I handed out the tech form. This one's dated 12/10. It's preliminary. This will get tuned up as we get closer to rules. This is posted on the website. It'll get updated as we go. For the people that are true rookies, pay attention to this. There's an awful lot of information on one piece of paper. Set up for teams of 2, and that's where Racer A, Racer B on the top. And then there's the columns on the right are tech inspection, which is the start. Nome is halfway. The marshals can check you, and you can be penalized if you don't have required equipment. So pay attention to that. And then at the finish line, we tech everybody that's in the money plus a few more. So be prepared when you come across the finish line. If you're in the money or close to it, you're going to go through this entire tech process again. Okay? The first part is all the identification stuff. Engine number, that's the serial number on the engine. If you're buying a new sled, that's going to be as part of your build pack. We're not looking for that, but you have to have it written down and recorded. Okay, and we'll attach it to the tech form on tech inspection day. Rail number is the Iron Dog issued serial number sticker that goes on one of the slide rails. Okay, so record that number. Serial number is the VIN number on your skid. Don't cover it up with a wrap or paint or gears. Registration number is State of Alaska Snow Machine registration, or if you're traveling from outside your home state, but it must be registered. Your you're coming from Minnesota, a Minnesota registration will work. Exhaust and intake need to be original equipment manufactured, stock. There's a sound test we can do, because there are some alternate cans that Skidoo was making. A few people tried them. I don't know if that became a popular thing or not. Clutch guard has to be on. One spare belt. The throttle, there's a spring in there for spring back, so we'll just pop it with our thumb and make sure it springs back. Brake, we feel for brake pressure, and at the checkpoints, you have to have a working brake light when you leave. And a lead dog, if it's wired into your sled, will count. Headlight has to be working. Windshield has to be complete. You have to have it repaired before you can leave the checkpoint. Okay? Snow flap, same thing. Chowder it up, you got to come up with some sort of snow guard before you can leave a checkpoint. Carbide runners, these are the ones on the front skis. We're just looking for anything. The studded track is 2 per track bar. And then Iron Dog came out with an update on factory studded tracks that use little carbide studs like you get in snow tires. You get those from the factory. And other people are using the screw-in ice studs like you do in ice racing. Those style of studs are allowed for expedition only. Okay, and there's an update on that from Iron Dog. I believe this is on the website. The GPS tracker mount. You'll be getting a packet from headquarters a few weeks before tech inspection. That's going to have a ton of information in there. Open it and go through it before tech inspection. I've seen people open it up at tech inspection. Not good. One of the things that'll be in there is this little bracket. Thank you. This is for the tracker that Iron Dog uses to keep track of everything. There'll be instructions on where to put this specific by brand. Okay? We'll be looking for this at tech inspection. It must be installed. Key things to note, there's flush screws in here. Make sure if you use different screws, they fit down in the recesses. And then at the starting grid, there's going to be a zip tie put through. So you got to have room for that zip tie to slide through on grid. Okay? I'm going to pass this around. This has got to come back or Jake will come and hunt me down. Pass it around. We also look at that for the finish. When we take them off at the finish, tech will take the trackers off the finish. There's a fee of $300? $250 if you don't turn that back in. On the windshield, in your tech, or in your packet you get from tech will be the decals for the sponsors. And that usually comes out at the very end. And it's extremely important you put them in the proper place, because the sponsors are what makes this whole thing happen financially. Okay?
We'll have 3. And that's it, and nothing else will be required on the sled anywhere.
Nice. That keeps it simple. Helmets, that rule's changed around a bit. It's Snell 2020 or ECE 22.05/22.06. Find where that sticker is in your helmet, so you'll be able to show it to the tech guy. Heads up, next year 2205 will no longer be allowed. Okay? And you got to watch the date too, because it's Snell 2020. Some people are running older helmets that were passed before, but now Snell is now. It updates every 5 years.
And are the 2205s common? Like if you bought a climb helmet this year, would it be a 2205?
Probably.
Oh, really?
And when you guys get that $1 million paint job on your helmet, don't paint over that rating.
So this
Make sure it's visible.
So what's not going to be accepted next year? I'm sorry, so I make sure.
2205.
2205, so we won't have those. Okay. Thank you.
And then same thing with the slide rails, there's gonna be a sticker for your helmet with a serial number. That's what we're reporting, the Iron Dog Helmet Tech sticker. Preferred,
came up last.
it's preferred outside so that you can be visually checked at a checkpoint, so. Team number's gotta be on your jacket, the numbers come in your racer packet. And again, we've seen people putting them on in the grid, it's like, don't be that, don't do that. Upper body protection, tech vest or equal must meet ISR standards. There's a little thing going on in the rules right now. What's in the Iron Dog rules was borrowed word for word from ISR cross-country rules from last year. And there are 6 tech vests that are allowed, and they're listed in the rule book. ISR cross-country updated their rules a month after Iron Dog posted their rules. Different. So I want to work with HQ and the Rules Committee and make sure we're crystal clear on that. Okay?
We have 6 in our rules,
6.
current rules.
Correct.
Those are 6 we use.
And those are required for the trail class as well as?
Yes, sir. Yes. Eye protection, goggles and or a face shield, you must have a spare. Upper thermals, you must have a spare, and preferably waterproof. And what we've been seeing at Tech at the finish line, Ziplocs are not waterproof standard, 2,000 miles.
Yeah, you got a little frozen bag of spare clothes. That wouldn't be very fun to get into.
This is a little better, it's still subject to abrasion, but these are pretty reasonable priced. That's not really a Tech thing, that's more of a shit happens things. You want something dry, you get wet. Lower thermal, same thing, must have a spare pair. Face mask, if you're running an open face mask or whatever, must have a spare. Same with gloves, must have a spare. Socks. Shin and knee guards have to go from above the knee down inside the boot to the top of the ankle. And there's some verbiage in the rules about that. There's some really flimsy ones out there that are basically take your finger and like work through them. Those do not pass. Boots, Arctic rating. The rules got changed for that. We used to be into temperature ratings and waterproof and all that good stuff. Now it just has to be Arctic grade. So I've gone snow machining in Extra Toughs. Better one. You can do it in the right conditions, but a bunny boot or a version of it is the best. So we're not drilling down into the specifics like we used to with temperature rating. Sleeping bag, -20 rated. We got to see the tag. So when you shrink it down, make sure that the tag is on top. Okay? I know a lot of you guys spend a lot of time getting them pressed down to nothing. We're going to make you open it up if you can't see that tag. This is at the finish line too. And it might be a no, depending on what the race marshals say. Bivy bag. Needs to be substantial. This used to pass. This is the foil type ones. This no longer passes. Okay? Essentially, that needs to be one you can use and reuse, a camping one. So this is Chris's, this is what he takes. And we'll get some examples on the website about that, but this used to pass, does not. There's some upgraded ones from this company that are substantial. It's like it looks like woven ripstop, and they actually say in the description, meant to be reused. Fire starter, matches or 2 lighters. Must be in a waterproof container if you're taking matches. Signal flares. 3 signal flares. If you're using the chemical type, there's a date on there, an expiration date. Has to be current. Where everybody's going to is an approved locator beacon. And we're not talking about a flashlight that you can put in strobe mode or a headlamp that you can put in strobe mode. It's a device meant to be a rescue indicator. The price on those has come way down. Last year, oh yeah, these are the bomb. These are quite good. You can signal from miles away with these. Very small, very compact. Any of the battery-powered stuff, you must have a battery in it. I brought some last year to Tech. I got them at West Marine. They were $23, I think, and helped some people out at Tech because they were thinking a flashlight with a strobe would work. Cabela's, Eagle Supply, places like that. Flashlight with spare batteries. Spare batteries, spare batteries, spare batteries. So that is,
We'll update the form because we all missed the spot or in reach or satellite phone requirement. So that'll go into the per person when the form is updated.
yeah, I missed that when I was going through the rules, so we'll be looking for that.
How do you guys keep the batteries warm? Like, 'cause it seems like the batteries wear out from the cold. Like,
We recommend lithium batteries.
Yeah.
Because those will work. Highly recommend.
thank you.
They're not cheap, but when it's cold and you're wet, they work. The following items are per team of 2. And in expedition class, if you get into a team of 3, that'll still work. It's when you get to the 4th person, then it'll be per 2. Okay. Rope, this is for towing, 25 feet, 1,200 pounds minimum. And Brian's got a little better definition of what we're looking for on that.
Basically, you just go to the website so you can find what the size of rope is rated for. If you don't know, that's one thing that's pretty important is to have strong enough ropes. You go to websites and find the size versus type of rope.
It's not a matter of if, but when you're going to be towing, whether on this adventure or somewhere else. And the more towing you do, the bigger and longer rope you use. So, tools, we're not asking for specifics, it's just got to be enough for you to do something with. So this is like perfect, you know, about 5 pounds right here. And work on this is personal advice, work on your sled with the tools you carry on your sled. And that way you'll know you've got the right one or not, okay? Ask me about 6mm Allens later, because I didn't have them. Hatchet or saw, there you go. Some to cut brush, make fire if you need to. First aid kit, we're going to clarify this on the website. The newer ones come with a rating on them for the number of people and the number of days. And what we're looking up for is 1 to 4 people, up to 4 days, and weighing about 8 ounces, okay? You can take more. This is the one I carried, it's about 2 pounds. So, but I've been involved in 2 medevacs out on the trail. Not for me, for people I was with. So, and I actually have more, so. Go through it, be familiar with it, add to it, you know. I believe you'll bring a lot of advice on that when we speak here.
Don't get hurt.
Don't do that.
Solid advice.
There are recommended already on the website for Iron Dog for first aid kits. They have a lot.
Yep, yep. And we're gonna tune that up. There's more out there on the market than just that. Arctic stove. Good man, you gotta have one. Just think that. These are the bombs. Very small, very compact. They pass. A pan or a cup, that's what that's for, is to melt snow to make water. We used to require survival food. Really not needed because you can last for days on your own, what you got built up in your body. But water you need every single day. Recommended but not required. Snow shovel, map or compass, spare batteries.
More spare batteries.
More spare batteries.
This is in addition to what the requirements are.
If you can work it out where all your stuff's on the same battery, that's even better. And then auxiliary fuel, that's become kind of a normal thing. A lot of people run auxiliary tanks. But I know on Expedition, some of you guys are just running mostly stock. Be able to carry some extra fuel, because there's some places long distance between checkpoints, the weather comes in, a little bit of snow. Next thing you know, that 12-gallon gas tank you got ain't big enough. So there'll be a sign off on the bottom when you complete tech. If there's items that are not taken care of at the tech, when your team is teched, we're going to be there all day until the dinner event. And we'll be circling around constantly. We'll make a list, and we will be at the start grid prior to you guys showing up. So come, if you have an outstanding issue still on start day, come find us first, and let's get that squared away. Okay, because you have a lot to think about. You don't want to be messing with, how do I put my racket on? And I'm leaving in 20 minutes. That's happened. Okay.
During the tech inspection, if you don't have something or something doesn't pass, all we're going to do is we're going to yellow it, we're going to highlight it, and then we're going to keep a master book with the team and whatever it is that is outstanding. But we aren't going to spend any time, we're not going to wait for you to go to REI or whatever.
Even in your car.
Yeah, it's just, we don't have time for that kind of thing. So we're going to just highlight it. You know what needs to be done. We know what needs to be done, and then we have a way to mark it off once it gets taken care of.
At tech inspection, the tech team's going to go through things in order. Okay, so when you come in and bring your gear out, don't just start throwing stuff at whoever's teching you. Okay, take their lead, go through the list in order. It's really organized, and we've seen this, which is awesome. It gets laid out on the table in order. So use this like a Bible. Go through it, read the rules, understand why the rule's there, be prepared, make sure you have the right thing. Make the tech inspection quick so we can set another record. We've done that 2 years in a row. Got a high bar here from Mike. Any questions?
Is the tech inspection done inside the sports arena down
Yes,
there?
yes.
Okay, or is it done in my trailer?
We've done that. In COVID, we were doing it on the trailer.
Okay.
But no, it'll be inside. Everybody, there'll be a load-in schedule. People can bring their sleds in. There'll be tables you can put in front, so you can put your gear out and be prepared. And then what we do is we just, as you're ready, we'll have 3 to 4 teams of 2 tech inspectors working everybody. Any questions? If you have questions, email me, email headquarters, I'll get a hold of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. move forward, and I know it takes a little bit of time, but this is very, very important information for everybody. I appreciate Chris Oles, Tyler Eichelstad, and Larry taking time out of their busy schedules, especially this time of year, to do this and share information with all of you. It's going to be pretty interesting to see the perspectives. I think even though Tyler and Chris are, you know, elite level teams, the way they look at the race is quite a bit different. And then we appreciate Larry jumping in, because Larry will tell you really how it is. So it really gives a good feed for everybody to bounce off of. And so with that, Chris, thank you, and I think Tyler and Larry, thank you very much. I don't know, Tyler.
Tyler went to grab a couple minutes.
Oh, okay.
So we'll kind of get really started in a couple minutes. But I'm Chris Olds. I've been teaching the rookie workshop pretty much every year since 2007, with the exception of 1 year we went in the water. Larry had to take over for us. So I've been doing it. I guess the reason why I started doing the rookie workshop is my first year was in 2000, and they had kind of a rookie workshop. They had little stations set up, and I felt that a lot of the information we got was not good information. A lot of it, there was some information that was good, but a lot of the information that we got I thought was kind of steered us in the wrong direction, put us behind instead of ahead for the race. So I'm really passionate about this race, about riding. So I really wanted to help other people, help you guys be successful. Obviously this race, it's not going to be here without racers. So we want you guys to be excited about it. We want you to have a good experience with this so that you come back and do it again. We want the race to grow. That's kind of why, that's why I've been doing it. That's why I'm doing it. You know, as racers, I think one of the biggest things that we all need to think about when we're out there on the trail. I mean, things get heated, either between you, your teammate, checkers, and all that. Just remember that you're representing yourself, your team, your personal sponsors, and Iron Dog themselves. So you're representing a lot of people, a lot of different entities. It's not just your personal decision affects everything. So keep that in mind. It's really easy to get frustrated and, like I said, yelling at your teammate in a checkpoint or yelling at checkers, and they're volunteers. This organization, along with all the checkers, it's a volunteer. It's essentially a volunteer-run race, right? There's very few people that are paid to make this thing happen. So, again, this is a respect thing. You guys need to respect that. The members of Iron Dog, the checkers that are out there, all the volunteers along the trail, people setting up the starting line, people taking down the finish line. Everything that goes along is volunteers. Take your time out and thank everybody. And again, treat them with respect. The checkers don't necessarily always know all the rules, so keep that in mind that they, when you have questions, that they might not necessarily have the answers for you. And I wouldn't trust anything that they say when it comes to the rules. It was already said, but one thing is make sure you read the rules. Even things that I go through my checklist, the rules get changed every year. Again, this will be my 24th year doing this, so, things have changed, and sometimes even in my mind, things get kind of muddled and mixed up, and I think about things that were in the past that aren't necessarily current in the rules. So make sure you read the rules. Have questions, and to be honest with you, the only person you should be asking questions when it comes to race rules, and I mean the only people, is Stan and the actual race marshals. Even pro racers like myself and Tyler, we can kind of steer you in the right direction with some of this stuff and maybe what we've done in the past. But again, I can't tell you 100% what's in the rules right now. I mean, I will be able to as I kind of go through them a little bit more again. But if you have a question on gear, what you need, rules, get that information from Stan.
And a big thing that happens in the race is getting that information from a checker. understand a checker is not a marshal or has anything officially to do with this race.
Yeah.
They're there as a volunteer, right? They're there helping guide you in and out of these checkpoints. They don't know the rules. When they say, oh, you can do this, you need to know the rules well enough to say, no, that's not right. Or if you question it, you probably ought to step back to keep yourself from getting into a pinch. That is something that happens every single year, especially with the rookies, is they trust a checker telling them to do something, and it's not correct.
Yeah, even when it comes to course, you know, where to go and stuff like that, you know, be careful of some misinformation. Again, you'll come into a checkpoint and people will be telling you that you can or can't go somewhere. You know, make sure that you are talking to an official checker, and if you're really questioning some of the things, do some other research. Don't just take what someone's saying. Because again, they might not even be a checker or anybody there, but there's a lot of information that will be coming your way. So again, if you have any real questions or doubt, talk with the race marshals. They're the only ones that can give you an official. They're the ones that are going to make it say that it's true or not.
With that being said, just hopefully the thing, if you have questions, probably the easiest way is just to use the website and email me. It's the simplest way, director@irondog.org, and then I'll forward it to the race marshals, and then you'll have a contact with them. But probably the easiest way is just to send your question to me, and then I'll forward it to the race marshals, and then you'll have contact. Rather than trying to do about 10 emails.
Yeah, exactly. So just make sure you guys, like I said, read the rules, understand the rules. There's a lot of confusing things, especially when it comes to checkpoints and layovers. Those are the guys to talk to about it.
Like, whether you're tech savvy or not, or try to get tech savvy enough, is most everybody's gonna have their cell phone with them on the race. You should have, like, copy a set of those rules and put them in, like, a file or something to where you don't have to have internet. If you're somewhere you get to a checkpoint, you don't have it, have them just as something to refer back to, and you could then read it in there, because most places you're gonna be able to have internet and have access to that. But it does happen. You might be at the community center that you don't, and you want to reference it. I highly suggest putting that on your phone and having it to refer if you have questions.
And more recently, obviously, that's what I do, but I mean, I've probably spent 15 years carrying the frickin' race rule packet on me during the race, so that when we're in checkpoints and layovers, you can go back through stuff and understand what you're going through.
That's too much weight for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's lightweight. Like I said, it's been quite a few years since I did that, but that's how important it is. Before we get going too far into this, Hillary and Tim have run the race here more recently, and I kind of wanted to just ask them a quick question so they can get out of here about, you know, as rookies when they first run the race, their memories, they've got a more recent than Tyler and I have as being rookies. What, Tim or Hillary, what are some of the things that you weren't expecting in the race that, like, you guys, maybe something you weren't planning on or weren't expecting?
I think for myself, given that Ashley and I were out there kind of doing it with a new idea in mind, because it is a man's race. You know, Tyler touched on it with the weight. Not that we were out there trying to be the fastest team, and so weight mattered in that aspect, but weight does matter in how you pack your snow machine if you're on the lighter side or you're female. You'll get more tired than the men, hands down. So we had to be really in tune with what our gear looked like. We had to know exactly where it was. For some of the guys out there, you know, it might be easier for them to go through their toolkit and just know where everything is. Ashley and I had to go through our toolkit, share with each other what was in our toolkit so that if something happened, we just knew where that stuff was. Same thing in the training runs. You know, a lot of times you'll see pro racers out there without their gear bags and their kits with them because they're working on their suspension and tuning and getting faster. I ride with my kit all the time. I want to know exactly where everything is at. I want to know how it's going to feel when I'm going down the trail. Yeah, so I like to get prepared earlier than what you might see some of the other guys on the trail. Another thing mentioned was food. In my handlebar bag, I always have food. I always have some type of, I have a salt tabs and I have some kind of snack that's not gonna freeze, that I can down really quickly. So even if I just stop for a quick second to throw something in my mouth, because you're gonna get exhausted, and having those little bits of snacks on the trail will help you get to the next checkpoint. And then, like you're saying, we might not be as women the most savvy on what's going on with certain aspects of this race. You can learn the rules like the back of your hand, and you can learn the trail like the back of your hand. So get acquainted with your GPS system. I know when we left Nome, there was a really bad storm that had blown in off the coast, and so the whole trail we took northbound on the coast completely changed. And the only people who had routes were people who had done the race multiple years, and so we had to be really familiar with what our GPS, how to read that GPS, so that when we went off trail, we could figure out how to get back on trail. And I'm not saying it kind of changed. The whole race changed from Nome through White Mountain into Unalakleet. So the more self-sufficient you can be, and know that you're going to get into it with your teammates. So it's just going to happen. Doesn't matter how good friends you are. You're going to get into it. So make sure that you trust each other. No, don't take anything personal. And use those times when you have layovers to get back in tune and be one on the same page with each other before you get back out on the trail.
Yeah, I would say listen to everything that Chris and Tyler tell you here today. All the veterans that I've come across are really good about sharing information. If any Polaris teams have any questions, I'm totally an open book. You'll get a ton of opinions. I can remember the first year that being really overwhelming. Everybody has a little bit different way of doing things. But just remember that these veterans, they've done it so many different ways that they're totally comfortable maybe not training the way that they're going to race. That's a really important point that Hillary made. Joseph and I trained with our bags, with our sleds packed the way they were going to be packed, with our A-arms. I carried the left-hand side, upper, lower. He carried the right-hand side, upper, lower. We had to change those in training, and it was like fast, because I hit a tree with the right side. I said, came on the radio, said, you have the right side upper, it's under your hood. Start working on that, I'll start working on taking it off. So we got to practice that in training. So train the way that you're gonna ride. Be independently proficient. First day of our race, I crashed in the pass and broke my GPS off. I was the GPS navigator all training season. Joseph sort of just deferred to me to navigate all the time. And so that meant for the next 2 days, including the riding inside of a ping pong ball day, Joseph was the navigator, and it was really hard for him, and we went slightly slower because of it. So if he had focused more in training on the navigating rather than deferring to the stronger teammate on that, it would have benefited us. Yeah, along those lines of training the way that you're going to race, including packing, I found in training I carried my inReach on me, and I carried it in my right-hand pocket. Well, if you hit something, those pockets are squeezing, you're going to go against your handlebars. And so I smashed my thumb in training with my inReach. So that was one thing I learned in training. I don't want anything big and bulky in these two pockets, because it's going to be a danger to your thumb. The biggest mistake that I made in the race was before the race, and it's when you have an ox tank fabricated and powder coated, make sure that it's clean. Wash it out with hot soapy water, wash it out with fuel. Don't put sand through your ox tanks 4 days before the race.
Tim's not the first guy that's done
It's
that.
not fun to do. I think I called Todd, and Todd was like, oh yeah, 1 year I did that and Scott Davis did that, and we both scratched. That made me feel slightly better. It still cost a shitload of money, and it was really stressful. And then another big shock for me in the race was, you know, I was really familiar with the trail. I had flown the Iditarod a bunch of years. I knew all these checkpoints and all these communities and how to get in them, how to get out of them. If you haven't been there, research it. I saw you guys pulling up pictures of these checkpoints. That's awesome. Pull up satellite images and old videos of Iron Dog and just try to familiarize yourself with the checkpoints. It was surprising to me, you know, they're so remote. Running this race is so difficult. They're getting checkers to volunteer their personal time. Might be super late at night. So make sure that you are backing up all your own info. If you're a rookie and you're fighting for the top rookie spot, you know, I suggest like having your phone and you can screenshot your time. When you come in, screenshot your phone if you have like flip clock on there, and so that you have a personal backup of your time and keep track of your own stuff. Because it's surprising, I've seen a couple of photos of like the timesheets that these guys get back, and it's like a white piece of paper with just a million random numbers, and then the guy takes a picture of that and sends it in to, you know, Stan and the whole timing team, and they're like, what? How am I supposed to decipher this? So any additional information that you can keep for yourself to back up your in and out times and layover times is super helpful.
I think you guys mentioned just real briefly too, just the checkers that are out there aren't always the race marshals. You know, when Ashley and I did it, we had come into Unilaclete, I think, after COTS, and we were heading to Nome, and they told us that the ice was really great to go out on the ice, and so we just took that as like, okay, cool, we can go out on the ice, and we've been in the back of the pack the whole race. So having flat sea ice sounded marvelous, and it was. But then when we got to Nome, Chris sat us down and was like, what were you guys doing out there on that sea ice? So it was very thin, like oscillating as you're riding over it. So just make sure that if you're gonna make those kind of split-second decisions, you're making those decisions as a team, not based off of what a local in a village is telling you is a good choice.
I think also, as rookies, finding out your pace, you'll hear a lot of stories of people wrecking on Big Lake. I was really nervous about wrecking on Big Lake or on the Swinton River, something close to home. And so I actually was more conservative than I think I should have been, which probably is bad advice. But, you know, train the way that you're going to race and find your pace. I think I remember on the first day making it past Shell Lake, and all of a sudden we look behind and here's Team 14. They're obviously way faster than us, so we're like, great, awesome, let them go by. And then another team shows up, and it was a rookie team very similar to us, and we were like, oh yeah, all right, let them go by. And then I'm like, wait, we can keep up with them. And so then we upped our pace a bit, and so I think our southbound leg was way faster than our northbound leg, because I personally was slightly too conservative. So those stories exist in addition to the stories of people going way too fast. So try to find that balance in training.
Cool. Thank you guys. Thanks for your input.
The only thing I would say is, not to beat up on Tim's last comment, don't get caught up in anybody else's race. That's going to screw your race up. That's the only comment I can say that is a rookie mistake. Yeah, if they passed you and you were going that pace, keep going the pace you're going, you were comfortable with, get through the first day. Yeah, just right. It's like people get so worried about, oh, I got passed, and then they start going and you're out of your comfort zone, and they wreck. And then guess what? It's a snowball. One little wreck, you took out your windshield, and before you get to Pontilla, now you have this broken off little piece of a windshield, whatever you have, it drops down, it's 30 below going into McGrath. You have no windshield, you frostbite your whole face because of that, and you get to McGrath, wake up the next morning, and your face is swollen, and you're frostbitten. I mean, everything compounds and builds. So, like, it's just these littlest things. Run your race. It's very, I mean, we say that every year, and I think I tell myself to do that, and it's tough. Like, you get caught up in the moment, but the more you can preach that and just kind of go out, do your thing, the better off you're going to be.
All right,
Before Chris, is one quick interjection for the 70% of the normal non-podium finishing people, and we just want to get you through safely. If you're not one of the well-known on the river, if you're not one of the multi-winning people, your focus is on getting through with the pack. Try and keep up with that pack mentality and ride with the team. And I've been with Chris when the help he gets from the community is different than what you're going to get. You're still a racer, and they're going to put you on a pedestal, but you're mistaken if you think it's the same pedestal that they're going to get put on. So the help they'll receive is way more than you will. If you can stay with that pack and keep moving in the right direction, it's a great thing. Deciding to jump out of pro class and ride with some expedition riders backstream on the trail when the checking places are closing down and trying to get fuel becomes an issue. So just
stay with that pack and ride with what the event is putting forth. That's pretty good advice.
All right, we'll kind of get into the individual safety equipment and team equipment. That was pretty well covered, but we do want to talk about a few things. You know, it was talked about like with the sleeping bag. Make sure that one thing that I don't think was mentioned too much, but when you show up to the tech inspection with your sleeping bag, not all of them say 20 below on the tag. So make sure that you have the documentation or being able to pull it up on your phone that your sleeping bag does meet the minimum requirements. Make sure that you have that along with the tag that's on there that actually shows, because like my bag doesn't say 20 below, but it has the model number on there, and I can look that up and show that it's a 20 below bag. So make sure your tag's very visible no matter where it is. Another thing that I've learned, and you can learn from my mistake, is don't wait until the night before the race to pack your sleeping bag. We've packed our sleeping bag in some really crazy spots on our sleds before to try and save room, and you know, not exaggerating to say we spent 6 to 8 hours the night before the race trying to get our sleeping bags to fit where we thought they would fit no problem. So make sure you're doing this way ahead of time. Don't assume that it's going to fit in some tight little nook and cranny, and it doesn't. It is, like I said, learn from my mistake on that one. Make sure you have a spot for it. We'll get into clothing later. You know, they're talking about back in the day, we actually, when I first started racing, we literally did have map and compasses. It was a mandatory thing. Obviously GPS is now. When it comes to GPSs, there's a lot of options out there. A lot of different, you know, from factory, the stuff that's on the factory to, I'll let Tyler talk a little bit because he has some experience on this, but the biggest thing is get to know your GPS. Don't think you're gonna figure it out the week before the race. Everyone is totally different. They require different functions, different ways to make them work, different ways to save the track. Get really comfortable and familiar with using your GPS. It can be in a position where when you can't see anything, it can save your butt. I'll let him talk a little bit about a couple different options here that most of the racers, I would say, current racers are using these two type of GPSs. And again, there's plenty of other options. We're not saying these are the only options, but both of us can kind of speak a little bit to this. Tyler, especially since he's used both of them.
Yeah, so I get this question probably from more people than any, is about these GPSs. And this is a 276. This is the newer version of a 276.
That's the CX.
Yep. This is larger screen that came out probably 10 years ago. This was kind of a go-to for everybody. This functionality has all the controls are still buttons, right? Nothing's touchscreen on this. Processing wise, it's a little bit slower GPS than some of the new ones that I'll go over in a second. Like it can have a tendency to, it lags a little bit if you're really dependent on it. Like in a bad whiteout, like I'm staring at this thing. That's all I'm riding by is this, if it was on the coast. Cool thing about this, I have never not had it work at any temperature. I've been in neg 50 plus and it works.
Same here.
No problem. Like it will work. It might, like as long as it's got a power source, like that's with this all. Everybody, your GPS, when you put it on your sled, you're not going to just plug this on there with no power source. It needs to be powered up by your snowmobile. So when your snowmobile starts, it's going to power up your GPS. That's the pros to this. Conduit is, it's a little older technology, processing slower, things of that nature. This is now like the 700i, 750, very cool GPS. I love this one. Processing power is way quicker, clear imagery, no buttons, everything's touchscreen. Love this GPS. Anything below 15, 20 below, it wants to shut off on you all the time, and it tells you that. It's below operating temperature, and it doesn't want to work. You can tell it no, you can tell it no. You can tell it no to probably like 25 below. I've been in 40 below, it just flat doesn't work then. So then you're pulling it off your dash and seeing your jacket. And it's no. I was just going to go. So the cool thing about this is when I have this, and we're talking about each racer has to have an inReach, the inReach is in here. So this is linked up to my cell phone. I can inReach off from this, or I can inReach like this is just linked to it, and I can text right from my cell phone if I need to. pretty neat during the race. You can actually get text messages that pop right up on the dash, right here, so you can see those. If you, not texting and driving, but I don't, no. So this works with my glove too. Like I've never had an issue. It'll work. Sometimes I can't fat finger it or something, but for the most part, this works. Downfall, only downfall is it does not like cold temperature. This one is, like I said, it's imagery on it, it's tried and true. I honestly, I have ours set up, so I'm on Skidoo. Skidoo, all it is like a door that sits on our little glove box door. I have a door with each of the different, of course, 2 different mounts that they mount on. I have the different doors, and I decide right before the race whether I want it or not. I actually tend to, if it looks like it's going to be a decent weather, I'm going to go with 700. I like having everything in one. I like the GPS. If it gets super cold, we do usually have the luxury of, you know, if we have air support, I have one of these in the airplane too. I always have another that's something packaged with us. And if I go with this, if it looks like it's going to be cold, I have this, and then I have just my inReach Mini with me at all times too. And as I pointed out early on, I highly suggest, if we're running this, Nick has this too. His has his inReach into it. He has his inReach account. I have mine. We both have the ability to do whatever we're going to do, send our own messages. We're using that one. He has his Mini. I have my Mini. We both always have these. Like I've been separated. God forbid, your partner goes into a hole, goes into the ocean, something, right? You're incapacitated. You want to have your own communication device, in my opinion.
I'll also interject too, is I have a Mini also, but I also have one of the more original, like the built-in, the inReach with the GPS unit in it. Those work really, really well. I wouldn't use it for like riding, but I'll tell you, it could work in an emergency. It's having the GPS functions. It has a bigger screen and stuff. It's a little more user-friendly than, that is really tough to scroll through. If it's hooked up to your phone, you can't always rely on that if your battery's dead or, you have some kind of an issue. So one of those units might make a little bit more sense. I also will say that between the Mini and the I don't remember the model number, but it's SE, those batteries last forever. I could go the whole race essentially without charging that will not make the whole race. You have to charge it pretty regularly. So just something else to be thinking about if you have it on tracking mode the whole time. But anyways, there's a lot of options out there. I would just, pick people's brains, figure out why they use something, and figure out what works best for you, and be familiar with it. Don't try and think you're going to figure it out during the race. So we'll get to that. We were talking about. I did, but I moved. Going to like goggles, it says mandatory, you have to have an extra set of goggles. I mean, some guys, I remember back when I raced, there was guys that had 3, 4 different pairs of goggles on our sleds. We actually have ours under the hood, our spare sets, so we can actually get them to thaw out. So again, something to think about when you're mounting your spare goggles, if they're just in a bag that it's on your bag, or you shove it in a bag, it's fogged up, iced up, packed full of snow, whatever the reason, you throw it in your bag, and then you do the same thing again, and you pull out your other set, and both of them are ruined. So think about that if you can mount it in a spot that maybe is more user friendly. They hit kind of on the boots, the Arctic boots and bunny boots. I personally run bunny boots. I'm also personally a magnet for water. So I tend to go into water a lot. So I've always kind of prioritized having boots that if they're wet, my feet are still going to be fine. I've been in water a lot, and it's just a safety factor. Now, do I like riding like my climb boots? Most of the time, if I know that if there's no chance of me being in the water, I would much rather use those than bunny boots all day long. But again, the bunny boots they can be a lifesaver when it comes to saving your feet and toes and stuff like that. So
you look at it, how I do it, I do look at the weather. Not to go off topic, you're going to become a forecaster with this race. You're going to find out what apps work for you and weather. You're going to be looking at weather all the time. That's I am. But I'm looking at that 10-day forecast, and you're gonna get a pretty good understanding of what does it look like the race, what are we gonna see for weather? Is it gonna be frigid, cold, or mid-temps? And then I make those decisions on that GPS and the boot as well. I did bring them here, they're in my truck. If anybody has any desire to see them, I do have a new set of bunny boots. I think everybody kind of does. I'll be honest, I only messed with the set that I did test as a tester for them. I tested last year, they changed from that. They are constructed the same as a bunny boot. Yeah, they are, there's a lot, they're far more comfortable. Think about long days and going over bunny boots. The reason I have had issues, I've damaged my feet over the years of racing. I've hurt my ankles, I've cracked, I've had this years ago. I can't wear bunny boots aggressively, my feet hurt. Like they absolutely hurt. There's no ankle support. My feet, I mean, I can get to McGrath and my feet hurt, my ankles hurt the next morning just from that boot. If I'm wearing a climb boot, they have a lot of ankle support with the boas, they can suck it in, my feet feel like tension, right? And as well, your riding habit-wise, a lot lighter, quicker, more nimble. But if it looks like it's gonna be 50 below, I'm gonna go with bunny boot. I personally have a cutoff that's like, if it looks like it's gonna be anything like below 20, I'm probably gonna go with a bunny boot in the race, just because if they say it's 20 in McGrath, it's gonna probably be 40 below on your way going to Idaho for man. You hit some of those low spots, it's gonna be a cold place. And so those are the things you gotta watch and look for and make those decisions.
And probably say this multiple times during this, make sure you're training with what you think you're gonna ride with, because I can tell you, if I trained in my climb boots that have ankle support all year and then switch to bunny boots the day before the race or whatever, it's a horrible idea. That's why I personally run these as much as I can. After Iron Dog, I end up wearing these like pretty much 90% of the time after Iron Dog, but I wear those just so that my ankles are, I'm lucky I don't have ankle problems. There's a lot of people that do. Just what Tyler was talking about, I've got quite a few friends that they just can't wear them because there's no ankle support. I don't have an issue with them. Plus, if you ride with them a bunch, again, train with them so you know that they're going to work for you. They were talking about the flares and the flares and the lights and stuff. The one thing I do want to bring up is even though the flares have an expiration date, I can tell you from personal experience that those flares that you have them for 1 year and you're in the race and they're tucked in, and even if they're in a waterproof bag and stuff, those things they corrode. And within a year or so, those things will not work. And I can tell you, like I said, from personal experience, we've tried popping them off and they don't work. So I'm not going to badmouth them or anything, but in the past, we found that there's definitely a limit to those things. So if you're going to be using the flares, make sure you just get new ones. That's all I'm going to say about that. I wouldn't use them for 2 years. And like I said, these are so much smaller and easier to carry. I would highly recommend that. We've got one of the things too is thinking about what to carry on your person and what to carry on your sled. I know Tyler is a person that doesn't carry anything. He's a lightweight kind of guy. And that's great, but I will tell you too, we've been in situations, say you go in the water and your sled, let's just say you lose your sled. What are you going to do? You have nothing to start a fire, you have no saw, you have no knife, you have no flares, you have no GPS, you have no inReach, you have nothing. That might not be the best thing for you, but you also, like I said, at the same time, you can't carry 100% of everything on your body. But you might want to be thinking about maybe having a knife, like I always carry fire starter on me 100% of the time. So I know if I go in the water and lose my sled, I have the ability to get out and get a fire started right away. So I have 3 methods of, I don't just carry the waterproof matches. I carry a magnesium bar. I carry different types of lighters, the different microtorches. Microtorches don't work when it's 40 below out. So you have to have another way to start a fire. Again, a regular big lighter, those things, when it's super cold out, it's not going to work for you. You're not going to be able to start a fire. Make sure you have different options to be able to start a fire. And again, I carry those on myself. Same with like the Lorme, I carry that on my person just for that reason. If I were to ever get lost, lose my sled, and there has been people that have lost sleds before in the ocean, so it does happen.
Can I jump in right there?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's a huge important point. If that does happen to you, I would recommend two things. First thing is don't call your wife. Call Iron Dog somehow. Get a hold of Iron Dog first. Second of all, use what Chris is telling you. Last year we had the incident where we had somebody go in the water. I don't know if they panicked, which can happen easily, but do not push your SOS beacon 52 times. We know you're in the water. We know you're having problems. We will get to you. We will send people to get to you as fast as possible. But please do not call your spouse. It's not the best call to make, because all you do is disrupt your home, and then everybody's freaked out at home. So make the first call to Iron Dog somehow, some way, so that we know by your tracker, if you stop for more than 30 minutes, you're having an issue. Thanks.
Again, going back to some of like the team equipment, individual equipment, I'm not, like I said, it's been, most of this stuff's been talked about, but a couple of things that I do want to highlight. The rope, for instance, there's, we have a minimum, I think that, is there a minimum in there? I don't remember what that is.
1,200 pounds.
Yeah, so 1,200 pounds. I can tell you right now that you can get like a 6 mil rope that's 1,200 pounds. The problem is that super thin rope will chafe, and it goes from 1,200 to nothing really, really quick if you put it around your spindles. We made that mistake one year of just running the lightest, cheapest rope we could get. When I say cheapest, it wasn't necessarily cheap, but the lightest rope that met the minimum requirements. I can tell you, you're way better off to go with a,
Minimum of 6 to 7 mil is what you should mountaineering rope. That's what go with.
Yeah,
6 to 7 mil.
Go with a mountaineering rope, or like the winch cable, the Spectra, or one of those type of ropes that are way stronger than a regular nylon rope. Because again, you just never know. Also, it's a minimum of 25 feet. I can tell you right now, if you end up in the water, 25 feet ends up being nowhere near what you need. You might want to consider, we don't necessarily carry 50 foot of rope, but we do carry one good rope with us, and then we carry some smaller rope that we can stack with us in case we need to go a little bit further.
This goes right into that is the rope. Tie up a sled. You'd be surprised, and I'm guessing there's probably people even in here. You have no idea if you actually had to tow a sled, how you're going to tow it. Where are you going to tow it from? You're going to hook up to the bumper to bumper. It's the worst idea, right? And most of these bumpers are going to rip right off these sleds. They're junk. They weigh as much as this orange peel anymore. Like, know how to use that rope. Like, if I'm going to have to tow, you're going to go to the spindles. Tie some sleds up, try it.
Or A-arms.
A-arms, right? Your A-arms, your spindle. Figure out what's going to work for you and have that with you. Again, trying that stuff. Like, oh, I have the 25 foot of rope. You're gonna get out there and if you possibly have to tow, hopefully you don't.
Well, test towing for 3 or 4 miles.
Try it, yeah. Just hook it up, see what's gonna work. How are you gonna tie this up? Do the bumper you have, do you have a heavy duty bumper on your sled? Do you have a stock bumper? Those stock bumpers, same deal from the rear. You're not gonna be able to tow from those unless you change those out. Ski-Doos, most all Ski-Doo guys change them out to a heavy duty bumper so they can tow from it. You could put an attachment eye. These are things you should be thinking about. If I got into that scenario, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, that's a great point. We've seen a lot of guys that, I know like when a certain brand had some really, really thin bumpers, and there's no way you can take from them. And even like when we used to have the dovetails, we used to have to go around the crank. Some guys built like hooks and stuff on their sleds, so think about things like that. Sometimes you can't go bumper to bumper. Even the front bumpers on these things, they're not really structural. They help a little bit, but there's not a lot of structure to them. So just make sure you have it. Same with like the hatchet or saw, the mandatory gear. I can tell you when I first started riding, I bought one of those little chain, it was like a little cable with some nubs in it that you could saw with. I think I got in there, I don't think it made it 10 seconds and the thing broke in my hand, and it does you no good. I would highly recommend getting a real saw and use it, try it, because some of these saws are super small, they fold up in your hand, they're junk, they don't work.
The Gerber folding saw are great. I personally, the Stihl one is what I carry. I have several of them around my house. I have one on every one of my snowmobiles, just because. And they've been That's my go-to.
I've got like,
So the little, you know which one, if you guys, it's a little orange.
They stay sharp.
and they have a really
They're
good,
really
they have a really
good
good
saw.
blade on it.
So,
But again, you might even want to try it, because I've been in the brush plenty of time in the race and had to use my saw to get myself out, so. One thing when you're packing your gear on your sled, the other thing I highly recommend is, it's kind of talked about a little bit, I think Tim or somebody, Hillary mentioned it. When we train our sleds are exactly like our race sleds are gonna be. So, with minus maybe a couple things. I pack more clothes than a sleeping bag, but that's kind of like the difference between my race sled, but everything else is pretty much the same. So make sure you know where your stuff's at. So like I said, like I train with so everything's in the same spot all the time. I know in the race where my spare parts are, I know where my tools are, I know where my, again, anything that's in my sled, I know where it's at. Some guys even go as far as labeling it, especially if you're not used to doing that, or you get yourself up to a time crunch, have things labeled, have things, maybe even have a little cheat sheet that's glued to your thing. It has a little checklist of where it's at on your sled. We've seen that in the past. Mileage charts is another one. Having a mileage chart on your sled, we'll kind of get into that a little bit with the checkpoints, but just little things like that can make a big difference, especially if you're having problems.
personal gear, can we go to that?
Yes.
Personal gear, like anybody in this room, if you're out there and you're adventurous, cotton kills, right? So we should be even at a starting line, potentially wearing cotton socks, cotton base layers, t-shirt, a hoodie, like that, you should not be even considering that. Like that is the absolute worst possible thing you could have out there, right? So I highly suggest whatever works for you, merino wool base layers. I'm going to show you what I wear. This is what works for me, right? And there is some other like considerations, but I have like a thin merino wool. This is my bottom layer, no matter what. This is what I'm going to wear. If it was 15 degrees the whole race, that's all I'm going to wear underneath my jacket. That's because you're going to be aerobically, you're going to be moving, and the last thing you want to do is also be overdressed with this personal gear. So somebody puts this on, and then you're going to have that big fleece jacket because you're kind of chilly at the start, and then you're going to put your jacket over it. You're going to be sweating so bad that you're going to be a mess getting into Whiskey Bravo until that. Now you're sweating, you're trying to peel that all off, you're trying to put it on, you're freezing up because your whole core is now you're all wet. Like, get to know what you're going to wear. But like for me, is like I said, this is my base. Merino wool, thing about this is, it's going to wick away any of that moisture, any of that sweating, perspiration. It's going to wick that away from your body, keep your body dry. So this is a top that I'd be wearing. I have the same for a bottom. Then I'm going to have my wool socks on. And then I decide, all right, depending on the temperature, am I going to be going with a 2.0, 3.0, over that. I personally can go with this base layer and a 3.0 down to about 30, 40 below. I'm fine with that 3.0. And then on my top, same deal. This happens to be a merino wool as well, just a thicker. This gets me down to that 30 below range, and I'm fine. With that, know if I'm broke down, I'm not going to be warm in this now. This is warm while I'm riding, and I'm going to be good. To me, the thing I always have is a down, like a puffy down jacket, just like this one here. Similar to it, I won't use one with a hood on it, just because of packing and size and like getting away, but I have something just like this, like a heavy, preferably a true like goose down would be your warmest. A synthetic's gonna be nice, it's gonna stay no matter if it gets wet, but like I'm looking for this, if I would broke down and just sitting out there, I'm gonna have like a heavy 800 fill goose like down jacket. I'm gonna put that on, or if I'm getting towed, I'm gonna put that on, and that's what's gonna keep me warm.
And Klein makes a heavy jacket like that without a hood. I'm the same way. I carry one with me that doesn't have a hood.
People haven't seen this yet, so it's they're kind of cool. I practice with them. Bad part about this, I wouldn't want to be dependent on it because it's the newer stuff. It's that E-Fire. They do. They're sweet. They work good. They only have, so if you're on hot, I wanna say it only lasts 2 hours, and it's like 4 hours on, 4 to 6 hours on medium, and then 8 hours on low. I usually, if I am gonna use it super cold, I have used this, but it's just, it's gonna eventually shut off. Where it has got me is I've gone out and it's 30, 40 below, and like we'll do a training ride to Roan and back. This thing, if I left it on low, I might be able to make it all the way back if I just left it on there. If I turned it up, all of a sudden you get all over there and you come home and now you're all sweaty and you're a little bit colder, you want to get back, and now you're freezing. So they have pros and cons.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the biggest thing is I started using the E-Fire. I started using the electric gear myself, both for gloves and for my mid layer. It's great. It works really, really well. The thing is you can't just be dependent on it and expect it. Make sure you have the right gear, that you're not expecting for that battery to work, with cold weather and stuff, you never know. Again, what Tyler said, don't rely on it. But I will say, we did a training run last year when we did a training run up to McGrath last year, and it was 50 below out. It was freezing. And I wore that E-Fire, and where it was really nice is we get to Nikolai, and we go inside to pay for our fuel. Got kind of damp a little bit, and with it being 50 below out, we came out and I was cold. I was cold. I literally put that thing on medium, and in 5-10 minutes, I felt like it brought my core back up, and I felt really, really good. So it was handy for sure. But again, don't rely on it. Make sure you have enough clothes to be able to layer in any scenario to where you can stay warm. There's been years in the race where we left Big Lake. I think one year it was like 38 degrees and we were on standing water on the lake. And when we got into McGrath, I don't remember what it was now, but it was like 30 below. So it was a huge temperature swing on one day, the same day that you're riding. So you want to think about, like as Tyler mentioned, about becoming a forecaster. You want to look at where you think you're going to go that day and kind of figure out what clothes you're going to wear. I'm a big proponent. Tyler and I actually dress. Him and I are almost very, very similar. I prefer the merino wool over the poly stuff myself personally. It does hold a little bit more moisture than the poly stuff, but I like the way that, it gets my skin. I like it much better. It keeps me warmer. Just like I said, personal preference. I like what he was talking about. My go-to is that thin stuff this will be like my next layer, and it's both wool. I will wear, like on the climb stuff, they have a 1, 2, and 3.0 stuff, and you can kind of mix and match that with it. But I always wear the thinnest merino wool against my skin. That's just me personally. One thing is what works for me might not work for you guys. Everybody's different. Everybody's body is totally different. I raced with Tyler Huntington. That guy wore 2 more layers than I did in any given circumstances. And I dress pretty light, but again, you can ride with Shane Barber and he's wearing a t-shirt with a shell on at 30 below. So everybody's different on what works for them. You've got to train with the gear. That's just what it is. As much as it sucks going out when it's 25, 30 below, you need to do it. You need to know what's going to work for you.
You're going to be better off most of the time. Have it with you. Be underdressed and get a little cold if you had to stop. That's going to be better than being overdressed and sweating, right? That's far better.
I stay, like what Tyler's saying, to reiterate that, I dress pretty light. Like I said, my normal gear is just this thin stuff, and that's what I try and wear until I get to about 20 below, 15, 20 below, and then I'll start laying it up. At the beginning of the year, I wear a little bit more gear, but I get to a point where I would rather just be a little bit on the cold side and not sweating, because it's that sweat. Once you get cold, that's what's going to get you cold. That just gets down to nothing. So I prefer to be a little bit chillier. I like to make sure that if I start getting hot, all the modern coats have vents in them. If you start getting hot, I think that you're way better off to just stop for a second, unzip your pit vents, maybe even your jacket if it's really warm, your pants if they have vents. I mean, you're better, I personally think that you're better off to do that than just say, oh, I'm good, and just start sweating your butt off.
That goes back into running the race, like be smart enough to say that. What does it take you to honestly, because everybody, you'll see that they're doing this, that they don't want to stop and not do this. So they're trying to ride one-handed and they're doing it, and you're trying to, because you save 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you run into a tree because you're doing this, you got your hand off. How stupid is that? You took out an A-arm for the next hour or 2 hours. Stop, undo your pit zips, it takes you 10 seconds, and guess what? You're gonna see the benefits of that because now you're not sweating, you're not dehydrated. You're gonna start seeing that 10 minutes down the trail, 20 minutes down the trail. You're gonna really see it the next morning when you go to roll out of bed and you haven't been sweating and you're so stoked up and sore because you're dehydrated and your body just hurts. Oh, I gave myself a little bit of maintenance. I put that in, I opened my pit zips, I didn't sweat as bad. I put a little bit of food in these, some electrolytes, some salt tablets, all this stuff. You gotta take care of your body out there. Take those 10, 15, 20 seconds and do that.
And the same goes with the opposite. We're talking about overdressing, and then underdressing is another one. We see this over and over and over again. And I've had some really gnarly frostbite on my face, on my finger. Doctor said I was going to lose my finger. If you start feeling frostbite, if you start feeling a cold spot on your face, what happens is your skin will freeze, and then you don't feel it anymore. So then you're like, oh, I'm good. Well, what's happening is you're only good because your skin's starting to freeze. So if you start feeling that, it's time to stop and fix it, adjust it. Don't think you're going to wait till the next checkpoint. Just like what he was saying, if you wait, all it does is snowball, and it's just, now your eyes close shut because you freaking frostbit yourself. Your neck is oozing. Now you have to deal with that the rest of the race. What's the point of not stopping for 15 seconds, adjusting that? It pays dividends down the road. You're not going to save time by just freaking powering through it on certain systems in instances like this. If anything, it's going to make you go backwards.
We see a lot of rookies do. This is the first day. You're going to get out there and like the first day is going to be taxing. You're going to leave here and you're probably going to be overdressed. Like you don't have to tell me about this. You're going to probably be overdressed. And you're going to get up towards Puntilla and you're going to be, and you're breathing heavy, and then your first thing you do, you're going to get the Whiskey Bravo, and you're like, I can't, you can pull your face mask down. I'm just going to pull it down. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to take it off or do it the right thing. Now I pulled it down. You're going to get on the other side. It's going to be froze. This happens. Like, you see it all the time. They get on the other side of the pass. You're heading towards McGrath. You pulled that thing down so you can breathe. Now it's not on my face right. Now the thing's a big block of ice because it's 20, 30 below and it's froze to your face. It happens. I mean, it's crazy how often you see it happen. Of just, like, even after telling people this, it's going to be. So the more you can register with it.
And it snowballs. Stuff is going to go wrong. It's stop, break the chain, and deal with it. And along with the mask issue is goggles. The goggle drama involved in the race is amazing. So go out and practice in the cold. If you think you're going to buy a new balaclava just beforehand, make sure you've tested it and you're not going to fog up. If you're old school and doing the taping, you figure it out, but well in advance. And I've never, and coming from these guys, they're talking about staying calm. I've never seen people getting off the machine more calm than Chris, Tyler, and Nick, and Todd. They get off, and it's like they were just walking out of a movie theater. They're just mellow about it and calm. And I am the rabid squirrel on the other end of the spectrum. So don't do what I'm doing, but somewhere there is the right way to do it. And just to take a step back and slow it down, it's back to smooth is fast, just slow it down and make sure you're doing the right thing. Take that couple of seconds to fix the stuff before it becomes non-fixable. If your goggles are fogging up, fix it. And work through that in advance now. Work through that stuff now, because race day, if you can't see in front of you, you're going to hit something.
So one cool, I guess, talking about electronic like stuff as far as heated, the gloves. Electric gloves are very cool. I would not personally go out there and think that I'm going to ride with those. Like, I don't actually even plan on ever riding with them when on my sled's running. What I carry them for, and I've had them for, is a replacement. Well, and I guess they could be if it was running. He lost a hot grip. When Chris frostbit his fingers because he lost a hot grip that year, if I recall.
It was my windshield. I lost a windshield.
So,
yeah.
But you have, so that's where these become a supplement for A lot of people, it has happened. People, especially with wiring, something happens, you lose a hot grip, and it is 30, 40 below. It is brutal out there without hot grips on. And so that's where these gloves become a great tool to have. I always carry them with me. I don't ride with them hardly ever, but I have them with me as like, all right, if it's really cold, that's my one thing tucked away in the sled. If I had to get towed, the sled wasn't running, and I'm just sitting back there, I'm gonna have those as a heat source. So maybe look at them and using them in that capacity.
I'm exactly the same as Tyler. I don't typically ride with them, but I do have them in my sled all the time. We talked about it last year in the rookie workshop, and Tim Goss's teammate, Joseph Rugel, he called me up, I don't know, December of last year right after the rookie workshop, and he's like, man, you saved me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I carried those heated gloves, and sure enough, I lost a hot grip, coming back, and it was 25 below, and I was able to just put that glove on and ride comfortably on the way back. So again, something to think about. Same with like the hot hands, the little hot hands. I always carry those in my sled too. The hot feet, hot hands. We'll carry a bunch of them, but I do have them. So if it's 40 below and you go in the water, you broke down, you have them. I always carry mittens in I carry mittens all the time on my sled. It's just like I don't ride with these. I don't plan on using these things, but I have used them. And it's always when we broke down, had some major issues. These things will keep your hands nice and warm, mittens. Again, if you have some hot hands or something like that, that really warm it up. I can wear thin gloves and put those on, and then if I'm working on my sled, I can work on my sled and throw them in my, I can tell you right now, we had a training run where we had a couple mechanical problems going into Ruby. We were leaving Fairbanks and we were going to Ruby, and it was 45 below out, and both of our machines no longer ran. I was by myself because my teammate kept going, and he barely made it. But I thought I was going to be there for, potentially staying the night. The first thing I did was I knew that it was going to be a while. So I wasn't even sure if my teammate made it to Ruby to go get help or anything yet. So the very first thing I did is I pulled out some hot hands and pulled out my mittens, put them on, got myself comfortable, looked at where the firewood was in case I needed to make a fire, kind of started getting that ready. Before I even, then I called, and long story short is he was able to get some help in town, and they came back and rescued me. But I was out there for 3 hours at 45 below. So again, with my mittens and stuff, it just made it comfortable. Same with having the puffy jacket that you could put on underneath. I'm not going to ride in that typically, even when it's 40, 50 below out. I don't need that puffy jacket. But if you break down, it's a whole nother thing. Same with if you're getting towed. We can talk about that a little later. But having some warmer clothes with you, you're probably going to need them at some point. It might not be when you're riding, but if you break down, go in water, it's a necessity.
Get to know your hot grips as well. This is all that same stuff. I kind of mentioned that. Know how to operate them, and then know your hands.
I see it. No.
A lot of people.
Beams in the back, hands are blistered.
You got them up fully high all the time, and then your hands start sweating. Or even honestly, some of these new sleds, they get so hot they'll burn your hands. I personally, glove-wise, we didn't really touch on gloves here. This is the glove I wear at 40 below. That's all I wear. That school glove is what I wear. The reason I wear it, I have gauntlets over them at that temperature, but I'm using it because I don't like all that insulation. I like the dexterity around I like to have dexterity in my fingers. And I'm really very dependent with that glove on the hot grip. That's where I'm getting all my heat from. That's why I have those other options if it does get cold, but that's all I'm wearing at extreme cold temps because I'm getting that heat conducted into my hands. I have that dexterity, I can move around, I have good movement on the sled. That's what works for me. Might not work. A lot of guys like some of the heavier power cross stuff. And you get to know that they start sweating like those. To me, what happens to me is this glove, my hand with all that insulation starts to sweat more, and I have a tendency that if you sweat, there's two reasons you're going to probably get blisters: is your hot grips or something's on too hot, your hands are getting sweaty, they're getting moist,
Or wet.
or you're also, your sled's a terrible setup, or you're scared all the time and you're sitting there at the death grip. I'm gonna guarantee you this right now, you're not racing this race with a death grip. You're not gonna sit there like this all day long, like, I'm freaked out. That's a whole, we'll go into that about how to set up your sled, but that's what people are getting blisters from, and it's a lot wet,
Another
wet
wet-
hands,
wet
sweating,
hands is
wet
another
hands,
one.
all this stuff, it all starts tying together, but.
And for me, Tyler can get away, now, I do wear this glove quite a bit, like this school glove, it's a great glove, but my hands get cold. My body I'm fine, but my hands are the one thing, they've been frostbitten so many times, my thumb, my fingers, have been frostbitten so many times. I have a hard time with mine, so I wear a little bit warmer gloves, but I'll wear some. The thickest glove that I'll typically wear is this guide glove, which I've kind of gone to this guide glove. It's warm, but it doesn't necessarily breathe as good as a Power Cross, so this is kind of like my go-to glove that works for me in like all conditions. If I know it's going to be cold, I'm going to be wearing the guide glove. If I know it's going to be warm, I'm going to be wearing like a Power Cross. If I know it's going to be really warm and stay warm, I will wear like the school gloves. I don't like a whole bunch of bulk either. The advantage of these, even though they're bulkier, most of the insulation is on the top of the hand, not on the bottom, so the palms are still very light. So again, if you're not wearing a brand like Klein that's made for riding, these things are meant to have, they know that you're going to be wearing hot grips, so they have a very thin palm in them. And they work for it. If there's a bunch of that's another thing with getting the blisters. If you have a glove that's not necessarily a riding glove, it's got a bunch of insulation on your palm. What's that doing? It's basically sliding like this the whole time. And what's happening is that's just creating more friction that you're going to get.
Don't show up. It's buy good gear, guys. Like,
Yeah.
don't show up out there with some sheepskin, wool, AIH glove that you got. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, I think
Christmas is coming.
Yeah,
ask for good gloves.
Yeah, all this. I can't preach how much, I don't put my kids in shitty gear. Like, I'm not going to. There's nobody in my house. Like, that's not acceptable. Have good gear. Gore-Tex. Have something, at least Gore-Tex or some sort of membrane, good insulated stuff. Like, don't skimp on this, because I guarantee you it is. Not to scare you, but I've gone over to poor man and I've had to hit my legs to make sure they're still alive. I'm like, are they even there? I was so cold. I've been so cold going down the Yukon. I pulled an arm through my jacket and just had to sit there and rub my body like this just to make sure I was just shivering so uncontrollably. -50, if you've never been into it, and then you're going 100, right? So, yeah, the wind's not hitting you, but the windshield, you turn, you don't even want to stick your elbow out to make a corner. It can be brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah. So with that being said too, if you're a pro racer, I highly recommend getting a shell. Don't get insulated gear, because there's going to be days where it's really warm, and the insulated gear does not get cold enough. You are going to sweat your butt off. Expedition class, you can probably get away with wearing some insulated gear, just because you're not going to be pushing yourself. You can stop and take a break whenever you want. But as a pro class rider, I highly recommend not using insulated gear, and just layering up so that you can wear the thinnest gear that you there's been plenty of times where, like I said, I typically just wear one thin layer of this, and that's my go-to all the time.
So there's the two ends of that spectrum. Insulated gear also don't show up in a race jersey pullover with just over it with your stuff on. That's not the race we're doing. There's people that have showed up that way.
There's veterans that have done it, and every time it's the same thing. Man, I made a huge mistake leaving Big Lake with a jersey on and getting to McGrath and freezing my butt off and having to stop, or having to take a layover in Nikolai that wasn't planned because you're freaking freezing your butt off. Something else I want to talk about, I wear these Klein padded shorts, like a bicycle pad or whatever, so it definitely helps with having a little bit extra padding on your butt. It also does have some pads for, something to think about anyways, or trying. Helps with chafing. When it comes to carrying some of the extra clothes on your machine, Dave kind of brought it up, having a real bag inside maybe your gear bag, and we'll talk about this. It almost seems like no matter what you do, a bag within a bag is way superior than just having a thin bag that's gonna, everything gets shaken around. Most people know, you put something in the back of your sled, it'll get assed out before the end of your ride. So have, usually if there's another bag in there, it kind of protects the other bag, and have something that's waterproof, because if you go in the water, or just, if it's raining out. We were kind of also talking about like the gauntlets and the gloves. I personally wear gauntlets, unless I'm mountain riding, I wear gauntlets like 98% of the time that I'm riding. I just get used to riding with them. When it's, again, 25, 30, 40 below, you're gonna need gauntlets. And if you don't wear gauntlets on a regular basis, they're just gonna piss you off. You're gonna be so unhappy riding with them because you're not used to riding with them. Getting your hands in and out, trying different types of gauntlets. Both Tyler and I use like Fine Lines gauntlets. They have a little bit of structure to them, so it makes it pretty easy. Again, practice with this stuff, because if you don't, you get to the race and then now you're trying to figure out how to get them to work. They're impeding your brake, your throttle, your hand movement, getting them in and out. Like I said, if you don't wear gauntlets at all, and all of a sudden you start using them, you're not going to like them. That's just my personal opinion. But again, I wear them almost 100% of the time, and I'm just used to it. It's just part of my riding gear. I don't even think twice about it. So,
anybody got questions on gear? I think we kind of did a lot of the...
If it gets warm, you can roll them up.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, practice with it. Practice with it.
Any questions?
You might talk about, like with the tech, where it goes.
Oh.
I find that like a light coat over the top of my tech vest.
So
that's the personal, yeah.
Yeah, another personal. One thing is too, some of you guys that are rookies in racing, maybe you're not used to riding with the tech vest. I can tell you right now, when they made it mandatory for us, it was a huge adjustment for us to be able to, all of a sudden, we went from no tech vest to having to wear a tech vest. Just wear it all the time. To me, I feel naked without wearing it, so it's just, I basically don't ride. I don't ride without my shin pads, and I don't ride without a tech vest. Bringing up a good point, see what works for you. Wear a jacket over, under. I typically, like if I'm layering up, like I said, we break down or have a problem, I don't take my tech vest and put stuff underneath it. I just make sure it's big enough that I can put it over top of my tech vest. Again, it's just a personal preference. Everything else is underneath. I will talk about a Camelback real quick before we move on. I use a Camelback. Tyler doesn't. I just like to have the ability. Usually the first day is really the only day that I use it. Typically after that, physically, the race isn't quite as exhausting, so I don't use it. But they'll freeze up and just be a block of ice if you don't do it right. So you got to make sure that like I have mine inside my tech vest and inside everything so that it's basically up against me. And again, it's just training and testing with it, because it will freeze up here.
Mine's always been froze up, and it just pisses me off that I'm frozen water. I can't drink and I'm thirsty, so I just assume not use it.
Yeah.
I have a question about the helmets, because I've always wondered, so
Yes.
I'm just going to ask that, and it's going to be a bad question. Why wear that versus a full face? That when with goggles?
So there's a couple things. There's a bunch of things there's. We used to all run like half face, and they have full face with the shields and then the goggles. So almost everybody's gone from the open face to now everybody runs the motocross, and for me it's more about protection. Because I will say that like a half face, in my opinion, has a lot of advantages. As a matter of fact, I think almost everything about it's an advantage, with the exception of protection, right? So I wear a motocross helmet now, really just because of protection.
She's talking modular.
Yes, I'll get there. I'll get there. We're talking about helmets. Again, it's just personal preference on some of that stuff. Now, when it comes to like an actual face shield, I can tell you that your face shields, even like electric ones and stuff, will fog up. And so what happens is now you've got a shield that's on your helmet that's fogged up. What are you going to do? You're going to stop. Most of these new sleds, you can't put them under the hood to thaw them out anymore. How are you going to thaw out your face shield? it's basically impossible. Goggles you can just switch out. So goggles are a little bit more, I think that's the main reason. Most guys, some people that do wear face shields, they'll actually, if the face shield comes up, they'll actually wear goggles with them so that they can peel the face shield up. They run a system that has it, but most people won't run a face shield because of that reason. And even the ones that are heated, I would say that if you do wear them, they have to be heated, and even the heated ones, you know, in certain conditions aren't gonna, you know, might not keep up with.
Are you doing truck class?
Yeah.
They're not a bad option, honestly. They're very warm. A lot of the newer ones, I don't know what you're riding. Skidoo BRP stuff is actually pretty impressive. I don't need to let you use it. They work well. They're very warm. There's a lot of advancements in them. From our perspective and why you're on a pro, these guys might be, it's a weight thing, right? It wouldn't, like, your neck is gonna take a beating on a long day with a helmet. Like, even with all the training you're gonna do or riding some of these guys, that extra weight of a helmet becomes a big thing. That's why you see us all running carbon fiber, the lightest possible helmets. That's why you see that on transition to that. That is a lighter helmet. The goggle change out, all those other aspects to it. But the module helmets do have some advantage. And I actually wouldn't shy away from it in a trail class aspect.
And just to add, not everyone is a Formula One racer with 2015 vision. And if you've got corrective stuff, and this has happened to me now twice, and I'm not mentioning names, but figuring out with somebody because their glasses weren't working and they kept fogging up and they couldn't get it to work, showing them or trying to figure out how to put their contacts in for them the day of the race is not the answer. So figure this stuff out beforehand as to what's going to work for you, glasses-wise and other. And I saw a whole bunch of just changes at the end, and I know Chris has some expertise on it. I've had to play with it as well. But some of the aftermarket goggles that have the lens inserts, it gets complicated. So start now if that's part of your solution. Make sure you have a solution that's going to work for you with a backup.
So muscle strain wise, like your body is going to take a beating, obviously, with this physically. A lot of people don't take into account. Probably one of the most strained to me, muscles and like that kills me, my eyes. Your eyes get worked. Like I've had issues, I froze them 1 year. You're like you get very hyper focused, and if you're especially say you're breaking trail or leading or something in the race, you're not blinking. That's another thing to be very observant of. Like I would get to where I'm in a whiteout condition looking for a trail, and you're so focused on it, and then all of a sudden it's 30 below and you haven't blinked. Your eyes start to freeze, and all of a sudden then you're blinking because they're hurting, and it's looking. I've had it to where it's like all of a sudden I'm looking through a piece of biscuit. Like it's, and then I'm riding with eyes. I'm trying to close them, but those are things to be aware of. And like your eyes are going to get strained. Like you get done with a long day, and to me that's like the first thing. I just want to lay down and just like close my eyes and just like let them relax for a while.
What about duct tape versus medical tape?
We were going to that.
Oh.
Yep. No, you're good.
Yeah. But while we're talking about the gloves and, I'm sorry, the goggles and stuff, something else to be thinking about too is like the shade of your goggles. Everybody has a different preference on what they do. I know, like for instance, Tyler runs a clear lens pretty regularly. That's all he wears. Some people, like I have fairly sensitive eyes, so it's hard for me to just run a pure clear lens when it's sunny out. I typically run like an amber, minimum of an amber that works good at night and in daytime. I've been in a position where we used to run those, and this was a long time ago, or like those photo chromatic type lenses. Some of them do not, when it's cold out, they don't transition back to clear. So just, again, you gotta train with this stuff. What'll happen is the sun will come out, they get dark, and then it gets cold out. In the evening time, you're wondering why you can't see anything. It's because those things don't transition back unless it's actually warm. And so just be aware of that. Also just be aware of wearing darker lenses at nighttime. Your visibility, try some different goggles, try that stuff out, see what works for you.
I find even people love yellow, but then you're riding with yellow in the daylight, it does brighten things up. I find yellow at night seems to cut, like everybody's spending all this money on putting lights on, and yellow does not help the matter at night. It seems to cut light, it doesn't give you the visibility you're looking for. So that's what I personally, I've always been, I've run clear Clear. Unless I was off playing on my mountain sled, I might run some photochromatic ones that, you know, if a beautiful blue day, but that's on that. Other than just race-wise, I don't have anything quite clear. Yeah. And talk about goggles. Here's something to talk about with goggles, is you're starting to see where people are, and this is an issue as well, talking about those shields. Shields are really hard, right? And a lot of the lenses on some of these new goggles are getting to where they're a polycarbon, to where they're not flexible like an old, what happens, you get in an ice fog layer, you can't get that ice fog off from some of these harder polycarbon lenses or shields because it gets baked on there so hard you just can't get it off. To where the older goggles, it's like you can actually flex that plastic and break it off. That's where, so kind of get to know what works for you in all these scenarios too. So I always have, and I'm speaking obviously climb stuff because that's what I wear. Edge goggles are the ones I prefer to wear. I like the visibility, the peripheral vision I get with those. But if I was into a scenario where it's an ice fog, I can't get the ice off those, so I still have the Vipers. I use the Viper Pros to where I can actually push on that lens and like push it in, and I can break the ice off of it that way. So
I was thinking like it's hard of a lens one that has some that'll pop.
Pop, yeah. You want to be able to get that. You want to be able to get it to kind of pop like a tin can, right? You
Don't
wanna be able
stock
to-
goggles.
Yeah, or well, and that's even those Vipers are that way. They're just this old standard style lens. I mean, they'll work. So.
What about the heat fire?
So I'm gonna. That goggle was not built to thaw out an exterior ice fog. So any sort of like anybody that's thinking you're gonna get a heated goggle that's gonna keep ice fog off your lens, that's not what any one of them is designed for. Every single one of those goggles is designed for that person that gets off their sled and they're huffing and puffing and they fog up on the inside. That's what it was designed for. It was never designed to keep ice fog off of the exterior of the lens or melt that as it's coming up. It will not do that. So
When it's 40 or even 20 below and you get that ice fog, I mean, even that, you can
It's a cool
imagine
goggle.
it just doesn't get hot enough.
You
But
almost
it
have to
does
stop.
work. It does work well.
You
What's
almost
that?
have to stop to let those goggles get hot enough to melt that ice.
It won't even, I couldn't even get it to do it though. I tried it, I don't think that. So.
Batteries,
It's not, it's just not, that element's not meant to heat up the exterior and melt off. If you're in an ice fog that's like building up on there, it's building ice there and there's not enough heat in it. I don't think the electric will produce something that makes enough to heat on that portion.
Yeah, I mean, if you're stopped, it might help thaw out, but as far as moving right.
Yeah, that's the only time I saw that. The 509 ignites, that air ignites, the only time it melted ice, it was stopped, plugged into the machine, and actually using the amperage of the machine to melt it, but never else. I mean, I have to take my hand.
Yeah, I'll take that. So we'll talk Pinkies.
Yeah, let me just talk, since this is the last thing we'll talk. We'll talking about like the face, talk about frostbite, brought up the duct tape, medical tape. We used to all use duct tape back in the day on our faces to prevent getting frostbite, exposed skin. This 3M medical tape, it actually has it's nice in the sense that it doesn't stick to your face as hard as duct tape does, so it's nice to be able to get on and off. It also provides a small insulating layer to you, so it actually does better prevention for, again, this is something that everybody has a preference on what works for them, what doesn't, whether you fully tape your face, whether you tape little spots that are problem areas for you. Make sure you try different face masks that work for you. I've gone to this Arctic balaclava from Climb. It has the neoprene around the whole thing. I can actually, like 90% of the time, I don't need to tape up my face with this balaclava because it just does a good job around my helmet and stuff. But, there's times when I know it's going to be 20 below, I've been in a position where I don't want my face to freeze, period. So it's just an automatic thing.
Try to
tape up.
Try to just get good at it, dude. You see a lot of people, I gotta get a mirror. Like, I've done so much. You just get good to just do it without a mirror, right? That's kind of the go-to. It's across the front, bridge of your forehead. You grab another piece. Try to get like right along the bridges of your eyes, like right there.
That's my
like this is where you're gonna like this would be a spot, and then if it's really like that would be either side of this. I would be like 20 below. If it's brutal cold and it's 50, I'm wearing that face mask that he's talking about, and then I'm going over the bridge of my nose as well, so you just box in this whole area. But
I
if
do
it
the
was
same thing.
0, this is what I would do, just as an added, just to get, like, this, like, right by your, the edge of your eyes, that's where more people get frostbite.
And I'm in the same boat.
The other thing with that thing is make sure it's tucked down into your jacket, right? It's not floated out and all of a sudden you got this pocket of air coming in underneath and you're getting frostbite, you got a zipper touching it. That's supposed to be underneath your zipper, so none of your zippers, right, they're a metal zipper, they're gonna get cold, they're sitting up against you. That needs to be tucked in underneath your tech vest where it should be sitting.
Also, maybe potentially, like, if it's really, really cold out, thinking about your, having a thin, like maybe a thin one that you can even wear underneath this was another layer. That helps out, just having another insulating layer.
So big thing for Nick and I both in these new helmets, that is great, super cold. The other thing that I've actually had, that thing on, everything on, frostbite tips of our ears.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just so cold, everything's taped up, like, so what we started doing in that case is just like a little skull cap over the top of that comes down and just covers just like the tips of your ears. Nick's seems to be more susceptible to it. I think he even did it last year or the year before. His whole top of his whole ear was frostbite. Like inside his helmet, everything, it was just, and then it just oozed.
So like the climb helmets, they come with a shield on the front that basically blocks all the wind from coming in the front. I tape up, this is kind of a bad example, but if it's going to be a cold year, I'll tape up all of my vents on my helmet, just so we're not getting the cross flow through. Sometimes I'll leave a couple open, especially if it's going to be warm out. But again, you can tape up your vents to try and keep a bunch of...
You just didn't notice your climb, if you have a plug for climb, but if it's, you get this little, I think the F5s come with them. You have to order it separately for that, but they have a Vortex layer that goes inside of it.
The wind stopper.
Wind stopper, those are great. And I actually tape a lot of my helmets up from the inside. When I have that out, I'll put tape on there and block those off. So, yeah.
That wind stopper is necessary.
So talk a little bit about, you got a little bit of
stubble,
beard and stuff. I've had an experience going out 50 below and wearing those things.
Yeah.
Ices up, ends up freezing your whole chin. Have you had that same experience?
I don't use the breath boxing he's talking about there. I will not use it. I don't use it because it holds too much there. I like to get it out. Even with that, you're going to get there and like, you look at videos of us taking our helmets off and it's all a chunk of ice. And yeah, it's just, the more you can control your breathing, it's so much of at a high level with this. Like, you're in shape, you're controlling it. I mean, just panicking, all those things. So the more you're breathing heavy, it's going to breathe up. You're going to breathe, so it's going to get nice walking back.
And the other thing is, I think what you're talking about too, is making sure that when you're breathing out someplace, and not like your mask isn't moved up a little bit, where now all of a sudden you're breathing inside your mask, and that's creating that ice dam that's even between your skin and this, which you don't want. You want to make sure.
For people that haven't been out in that cold weather, they just need to be aware of it because you don't feel it.
100%.
Absolutely. I usually don't get more than like during the race I'll shave, like this is the most stubble I would have. I don't know how guys do with big beards. So
Tyler's teammate Nick, I don't know what it is with him, but he gets pretty impressive. He gets an impressive amount of ice.
Yeah, it freezes your face, man.
Yeah.
We'll block lava.
Yeah.
Go see AT Lady Parker over there.
I think with that, unless anybody have any questions real quick before we take the lunch break?
Yeah, we can break for a lunch.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The stream stuff,
Okay.
Okay. Noon, and then we'll kick back up at 1, so.
Yep. We'll take lunch break.
We have pizzas coming, they're just on the way, so.
Oh, I know, he called, Jesse called me.
Learn how to
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
How much
He
would you
called
get
me.
Yeah.
Paid for your sleds yet?
No, we get it.
Well, you are.
Well, for the
I did it
for
for
next
fun
week.
just because I
Yeah.
never did it
Yeah, we
before.
got,
And
so I had a precision
I
film
learned how to do
last last
with
year.
on that
He
deal.
told me he was going to buy
And it was like,
some expedition.
this is the coolest thing ever.
He-
So I did Farewell Lake.
Because I've been watching videos about how to
And he
save
sat
for
there, and
life.
it's
I've
like,
only done
well,
about
because
Big Lake and-
it's just, it came down to the funds that we needed.